Chapter 107. The girls scroll. Gognav first noticed Hua Yu, since she was the most striking girl that was as bright as a white gold rose. After awakening her white gold rose bloodline, Hua Yu was the tallest, had the most slender legs, the fullest breasts, the most gorgeous clothes, and the most eye-catching temperament. Her beauty was like her bloodline, as dignified as a king. Gognav drew a circle on the paper, vaguely outlining her figure. It was a figure that was as bright as a sunflower, perfect and lively. The second girl Gognav noticed had a very average appearance with freckles on her face, and she was carrying a common iron sword on her back. Anyway, she should be just an ordinary girl. She wasn't as bright as Hua Yu, and didn't look superior to any of the other girls. However, Gognav noticed a very special charm about her body. She was like a stalk of grass that was rooted in the harshest environment. Maybe you would ignore her, but she was always there. The wild wind couldn't blow her away. The rainstorm couldn't wash her away. Even an earthquake couldn't eliminate her strong will to live. Even though she was standing beside Hua Yu, but she behaved like Hua Yu's other side, ordinary and unknown. In that case, what made him pay attention to her? Was it her determined look? It seemed that something special was hiding within her body, and that thing made her stand beside Hua Yu bravely. Sunflower and grass. They were their outlines under Gognav's painting brush. The next few hours, Gognav drew one female swordsman's portrait after another. They all had their own special character and beauty. Gognav had never seen so many special girls in a single day. He could feel that there were some similar things within their bodies making them show their special and perfect side. Yes, that thing should be called spirituality. In the world, only very few mortals had spirituality. Whether the person was man or woman, if the person had spirituality, then that person would undoubtedly show excellent talent in his or her own field. These female swordsmen's spirituality was visible. Their confident eyes were the best evidence. They were flowers blossoming in the garden. They had a bright future. After determining every girl's place on the canvas, Gognav finally moved his eyes to the group's center, the master and the maid. Why did he leave them to the end? In fact, even Gognav himself didn't know the reason. Till he began to observe the girl standing in the center. Hiss. Gognav gasped after just taking a glance. What is that? She can't be a human. As an art master who had strong sensibility, Gognav realized that at the very moment he saw Hua Yu. He immediately realized how terrible this being was. He once saw a dragon hovering in the sky, and a giant shaking the earth by simply his walking, but none of them could compare to this girl. Her strong and terrible presence wasn't something that could be described in words. This was lightning that was breaking through the sky, a volcano that was erupting. It was a natural disaster that could cause fear and unrest simply by standing at that place. He sensitively perceived that there was some terrible power bound within her body, and she kept suppressing her power with great care in case that it lost control. She wasn't like any of the other girls around her. She was a living being standing on the higher realm, but for some reason, she suppressed her power and pretended to be normal. Sword Palace? Did this monster really need to go to Sword Palace? Even if it was a real dragon, it would undoubtedly be killed by her as easy as winking. What was her bloodline? How could she have such a terrible power at this age? She was obviously still a mortal. If she awakened her bloodline and reached the hero rank, what would happen at that time? Gognav couldn't imagine it, but he knew that it would be a disaster. Gognav shook his hands, strenuously drawing Hua Yu's figure on the canvas. They were a pair of wings. Gognav just drew the vague outline and didn't color it, because this was already the result of developing his artistic talent to the limit. Puff. After that, Gognav let out a sigh of relief. The most difficult part had been finished. He looked at the black-haired maid standing behind Hua Yu. This shouldn't be a difficult target. After witnessing Hua Yu's terrible temperament, he didn't think that anyone could make his heart shake again. Till he saw the pair of deep, mysterious black eyes. They weren't as bright as Hua Yu's eyes, weren't as indomitable as Xiao Cao's eyes, and weren't as overwhelming as Hua Yu's eyes. However, Gognav froze the second he saw that pair of eyes. What was this pair of eyes? He felt that he saw infinite wisdom, endless time, and boundless stars in those eyes, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years, 1,000 years. Gognav only peeked at a very small part of that endless time, but it already made his consciousness get lost in the flood of time, declining into deathly stillness. If Hua Hua's power meant power and dignity, then the black eyes meant tolerance and equality. Dark and light. Evil and divinity. Birth and death. In the endless time, the stars kept shining on all things in the universe, watching all things in the world, and protecting all things under the starlight. No matter whether you were evil or good, or what your race and gender was, no matter how the time flowed by and how history repeated again and again, they were always there, watching everything. They were the world itself, they were the supporting body of time, they were the base of all things' existence. They were earth, sky, river, and sea. They were fire, ice, storm, light, and dark. The stars watched all living beings' birth and death. They watched the elapse of time. The stars existed in the past, present, and future, never changing. Gognav's painting brush broke. He wasn't able to observe that any longer. The limit of his artistic talent couldn't even let him observe 1/1000th of the star's memory. He couldn't image how great a soul could bear the weight of the star's memory. Was she a girl that was blessed by the world? Cough. Gognav wiped off the blood from the corners of his mouth, then drew a few stars on the canvas. Done. Gognav turned over the canvas. A bright, beautiful group portrait, which had recorded all the girls' figures on it, appeared on the next page. As for the first page, which Gognav used his hero-ranked ability to draw and had recorded a small part of these girls' characters, he decided to name it as the Girls' Scroll, and never showed it to anyone during his lifetime. Chapter 108. The Evil God's Sacrifice. After finishing the drawing of the group portrait and hiding the real painting, Gognav's face was as pale as a vampire. However, on the contrary, his eyes looked extremely excited. How long had he lost this feeling? Trembling in excitement, his artistic inspiration was springing up from his heart. Why did he leave the familiar Western God's domain and go to the remote White Lotus Sword domain? Wasn't it to seek the limit of his art? What was art? Different people had different answers. But for him, his art was right here, in front of his eyes. Looking at the smiling girls, Gognav made a decision. White Lotus Sword Palace. Gognav packed up the canvas and handed over the group portrait to Hua Yu, then showed a mysterious smile at the corners of his mouth. His decadent daily life was over. When Gognav drew the group portrait for the girls, the male swordsman's camp was having a meeting. Come on. Let's drink. The bill is on me. Yoonhee family's second child, who was also known as the only formal male selectee, was entertaining all the male swordsmen. The wines were good wines, and the meat was good meat. The amount was abundant enough for everyone to have a good meal. Obviously, he was trying to win the people's support in this way. To be honest, it was indeed a very effective method. To the male swordsmen, especially those from civilian families, this was quite a grand banquet which they wouldn't often partake of during their lives. You're really generous. You deserve to be one of the top 16 candidate. Unfortunately, these female swordsmen were too strong. Can the tale about the black-haired maid be true? These civilian swordsmen were drinking and eating. They gradually and naturally opened their minds to each other. Since they could be listed on the alternate list, this was already the best result they had expected. Most of them wouldn't have the chance to become Sword Palace's formal disciples. The best result for them was to become one of the formal disciples' entourage. It was natural for them to curry good favor to those who had showed their talent in the entrance test. It was never an easy thing for civilian swordsmen to improve themselves. Their exercises needed large amounts of resources. Unless you were a peerless genius, otherwise it was a must-be choice to join one of the noble families. Yoonhee family was one of the oldest and strongest families in White Lotus Sword domain. It was said that they were the descendants of a peerless sword master, and many hero-ranked swordsmen were from this family. At all times, there were always many people trying to serve this family. I'm still not that child, Yoonhee. Our family hasn't sent the order to deprive my brother of his name. Even though the second child said it like that, but the smile on his face exposed his true feelings. The crime of losing the Crane Wing's twin swords was enough to knock down his arrogant brother. Child Yoon-hee, the name which only the best genius of his family could inherit, would undoubtedly become his new name. My brother, just die at ease. I will inherit everything you have, including the twin swords. As long as I take them back, that pair of highest-graded spirit weapons would become mine. At the same time, in one of the corners of the small town. What? None. Child Yoon-hee stared at the manager of his family's trading company with a ferocious look. Yes. I can't find any alpaca here. Even in Western God's domain, it's a very rare animal. It's a special protected animal. The manager spread out his hands and looked at Child Yoon-hee with a helpless look. Although Child Yoon-hee had lost his influence, but after all, he was still a member of Yoon-hee family and a third-ranked person. Even if he wouldn't be able to inherit the family head position anymore, but he could still be used as a tool to marry into another family. The manager himself was just a negligible manager, which meant that he could never disobey Child Yoon-hee's order. However, he couldn't satisfy Child Yoon-hee's wish, because the thing he ordered didn't exist in the whole White Lotus Sword domain. Child Yoon-hee had asked him to look for the sacred animal of Western God's domain, alpaca, for him. If he hadn't seen it from a book which introduced Western God's domain's natural environment, he wouldn't even have known what animal Child Yoon-hee was asking for. This was a sacred animal that only lived in the Gobi Desert of one of the countries of Western God's domain. You would never expect to see it in the Eastern God's domain. Even if there were a few alpacas in Eastern God's domain, the number wouldn't be more than the number of his fingers. No alpacas live here. Child Yoon-hee had almost been driven crazy. If he wanted to increase his strength, he must sacrifice living alpacas to the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli. However, he couldn't get any alpacas. What should he do? If you really want the animal named alpaca, I have no way to buy any grown-up alpaca, but maybe I can buy some half-blood cubs for you. The manager saw the desperate look on Child Yoon-hee's face. He hesitated for a while, then told him the compromised solution. Half-blood cubs. A fire named Hope was suddenly ignited in Child Yoon-hee's eyes. Yes. As I recall, in the past, some people carried out an experiment by using the sacred animal alpaca. Although the experiment failed, but as a byproduct, they created a table-purpose goat, which is really expensive. The goat has a part of alpaca bloodline. If you want to eat alpaca, then this kind of goats can be a very good substitute. I heard that it had very good taste. The problem is, although the goat isn't as rare as alpaca, but they are still not that easy to get. I need a lot of money, and have to buy them from the black market. The manager rubbed his index finger and thumb, implying Child Yoon-hee should give him money. How much is it? Child Yoon-hee had a very bad foreboding. It should be about this number. What? Child Yoon-hee was shocked. The table-purpose goat was too expensive. This is just a conservative estimate. After all, it's a rare race that doesn't exist in Eastern God's domain. Besides, it's very difficult to breed them. I have to buy them via a special method, the manager complained. In fact, it was really not a profitable business. If it wasn't because Child Yoon-hee suddenly awakened this special habit, he didn't want to deal with it at all. Even though Child Yoon-hee was in a bad situation, he was still the master. As the family's servant, the manager couldn't disobey his order. He couldn't get an alpaca for Child Yoon-hee, but he could get the special goat. After all, it was just a failure of hybridization experiment. I need them. Buy a male goat and a female goat for me. For the great evil god and for himself, Child Yoon-hee gave up his dignity. Besides that, look for the books about how to feed these kind of goats for me. Was Child Yoon-hee going to raise goats? The manager looked at Child Yoon-hee's painful face in confusion. This child's hobby was really difficult to understand. Chapter 109, The High Wall in White Lotus Sword Domain's Sword Blade Area. Due to various reasons, most of the sword domains in Sky Sword God's domain looked like a sword. The sword handle area was the living and trading area for ordinary people. Almost every sword handle area gathered over 90% of the ordinary population in each sword domain. The sword blade area was very dangerous. It was the habitat of various terrible and strong creatures, and was also the habitat of many sects and forces. It was a world which had both chances and danger. The Sword Tip area was a supreme, holy land, the location of each Sword Domain's Sword Palace. Only Sword Palace's disciples were entitled to live in this area. They studied and practiced by themselves, then stepped on their own road leading to the hero rank. The noble families, sects, and forces in the Sword Handle area and the Sword Blade area would try their best to recruit anyone who came out of the Sword Tip area. Sword Palace represented Sky Sword God's domain's orthodoxy. It was the most transcendent force of all the Sword domains. Most of hero-ranked beings lived in the Sword Tip area under Sword Palace's control. Occasionally, even legend-ranked presences would come to Sword Palace. All the boys and girls of Sky Sword God's domain had a dream to become a disciple of Sword Palace, unless their sword talents were too poor to the extent that they couldn't see any hope. Sword was power, and sword was the god. Sword Palace was the highest inheriting system in Sky Sword God's domain. Even in the whole Eastern God's domain, the swordsmen from Sky Sword God's domain weren't nothing. They and the Taoist priests from the Heaven's Road Palace were called the strongest two careers of Eastern God's domain. Is this the wall? Yunshi had lived in the Sword Handle area for 16 years. This was the first time he saw the high wall which protected the Sword Handle area. To be exact, it wasn't just a wall. It was a set of defense system. From the exposed wall to the mid-wall, then to the last interior wall, there were 3 walls that were over dozens of kilometers. Including the fortresses which were spread all over the place, they were a complete defense system that was as strong as iron. Unless there were under legend-ranked monsters attack, the defense system was almost unbreakable. Throughout history, all the defense systems in all the sword domains had only been broken very few times. The sects and forces purposely built their stations in the wild of the Sword Blade area. They actively eliminated the monsters living in the Sword Blade area. It was said that in some large sword domains, the monsters in their Sword Blade areas had almost been exterminated. I heard that the wall was made out of the monsters. Countless monsters' corpses accumulated and became the wall. Look at the tallest wall, it's said that it was made up of giants' corpses. I know. It's not just a tale. It's really made up of giants' corpses. It's said that this method can save the quantity of building materials. The female swordsman circled around Yunshi and chirped like a group of birds. Hua stared at them in anger, but couldn't directly say it out. Hey, are you blind? Mai is just a girl. Why do you get so close to him? And little she, don't laugh. You should remember that there's still some strangers before Sword Palace's entrance test. Why are you staying and chatting with them so naturally? It wasn't just for saving building materials used. Powerful giants' corpses can shock and/or weak monsters, and scare them to maintain a distance from the wall. The Sword Blade area isn't as simple as your imagination. Even if you're a hero-ranked person, you will die there if you're too careless, because that's a thing that has once happened. A hero-ranked adventure team was eliminated there by an unknown monster. As an aristocratic miss of the famous Hua family, Hua Yu placidly occupied the most advantageous position beside Yunshi and told him about the danger. A monster that can even eliminate a hero-ranked adventure team? Is such a terrible monster really in White Lotus Sword domain? Yunshi was shocked. He knew how frightening the hero rank was. The twin witches had left a deep impression in his heart. They were almost invincible when they were together. I don't know. At that time, even the previous master of White Lotus Sword domain came to investigate the incident, but in the end, no one found that monster. From the traces at the scene, it should be a very big monster, Hua Yu said. She was very good at guiding the topic to her familiar field. That was a natural ability of her white gold rose bloodline. According to the combat time and the combat strength, it should at least be a 5th-ranked monster. Maybe it was an alien invader dropping from the sky. Can I make a lot of money if I kill it? Xiao Cao's eyes were sparkling. Compared to the monster's terrible power, she was more concerned about the reward. Of course. The previous child Yunhe was killed by that monster. Yunhe family has posted a whopping cash reward. As far as I know, White Lotus Sword Palace has also posted a reward, but only hero-ranked people can accept the quest, because it is too dangerous. Who are you? Warned Xiao Cao, but Xiao Cao's eyes were still sparkling. She didn't care about the potential danger at all. The hero rank. I will try my best. Xiao Cao counted her fingers. The first finger, the first rank. The second finger, the second rank. This was her current rank. The third finger, the third rank. It shouldn't be hard to reach. After that, it was the fourth finger, the fourth rank, which was also known as the hero rank. There was still time for her to earn money to buy equipment before that. Well, after 2 fingers, she would be able to accept that quest. As the old saying stated, the poor children manage household affairs early. Since there was such a profitable quest waiting for her, she should improve herself as soon as possible. You don't underestimate the hero rank too much. Who are you? Found Xiao Cao's plan both funny and annoying. Once a person reached the hero rank, that also meant that the person had exceeded the limit of his life. How many geniuses couldn't reach this realm till their deaths? How many civilian swordsmen sold themselves to noble families, just to exchange for a possibility of breaking the invisible barrier stopping them from reaching the hero rank? No. If it was her, sooner or later, she would be able to reach the 4th rank. She felt the growth speed of Xiao Cao's seed and made that judgment in his heart. After practicing the basic sword skill to the limit and learning Mortal's sword, perfect, the more difficult the sword skill Xiao Cao practiced, the easier she would feel it became. From the 1st rank to the 2nd rank, it was the most difficult time for Xiao Cao. To Xiao Cao, who had Mortal's sword, perfect, combat instinct, and heart eye, she would be able to reach the next several ranks as easily as blowing off dust. Chapter 110, Setting sail on the wall which was far away from Yunxi, Who are you, and Xiao Cao, the border guards were looking at the huge ship suspended in the air in excitement. White Lotus was a floating ship that was named after White Lotus Sword Domain. It was 3 kilometers long and 300 meters wide. Even in the whole Sky Sword God's domain, it was one of the top 100 floating ship and White Lotus Sword Domain's final battle fortress. Normally, it could carry 1,000 people, whilst its limit was 3,000 people. It was the pride and representation of the whole White Lotus Sword Domain. To the mortal world, it was a miracle that only appeared in fairy stories. It was too large. Even though it was just suspended there and doing nothing, its size was sufficient to make mortals prostrate themselves in worship. It was the crystallization of the whole Eastern civilization. It was a world-shaking treasure that was created by Heaven's Road Palace and Sword Palace together. It needed over 100 operators and at least a hero-ranked Taoist priest to control it. If it was necessary, it could also become a hanging field for doing rescue and relief work. It was one of the cores of the whole White Lotus Sword Domain's armies. It was the only floating ship in the whole White Lotus Sword Domain. Every year when Sword Palace finished recruiting its new disciples, the ship would fly to this district, wait for the new disciples, then fly back to the sword tip area. This also meant that mortal soldiers who were stationed there would only see the legendary floating ship at this time every year. Due to the military ban, only the luckiest soldiers could go to the ship to help carry supplies. After they came back, this would become a topic of conversation for their lifetime. I really envy these new disciples. I'm also at the 2nd rank, why can't I go to Sword Palace? A bearded team leader, who was as strong as a bear, looked at these young boys and girls with a depressed look. Come on, sir. You're already 39 years old, and these 2nd-ranked kids are only 16 or 17 years old. You're simply not at the same realm. The team leader's adjutant patted him on his shoulders and said, they're real geniuses and the future of our White Lotus Sword Domain. Realize it, we can't go to Sword Place. The only thing we can do is to be promoted in the army and raise our offspring. If our children can go to Sword Palace, even if they just become the formal disciples' servants, that would be good enough. Not far away from the 2 senior officers, soldiers were chatting about a rumor. Have you heard the news? A miracle occurred in one of the examination areas. There were about 40 female swordsmen that passed the entrance test. I heard that they had all obtained a special blessing. Yes, I also heard that from my relatives. The blessing was a black-haired female swordsman's strand of hair. It said that her black hair has a special magical power. The people who obtain the black-haired girl's strand of hair will become very lucky. Look. That's her, that girl standing at the bow, the girl who has the most beautiful black hair. Several scouts saw the legendary black-haired girl on the ship. Not only them, many people believed this rumor. After all, even if it was just fake news, it wouldn't do any harm. Therefore, the black-haired girl was becoming a legend. On the ship White Lotus, Yunshi suddenly felt cold on his back, as if there were many people gazing at him. That's strange. Why are so many people gazing at me? Did I do something that makes them do this? In every direction and even several kilometers away, people were all gazing at him. What had happened? Your black hair has become the most popular legend now. Finally, who are you? Explained to him. Many of my friends asked me to ask for a strand of hair from you. They hoped that it could bless them. But, that's just a rumor. Yunshi looked at Hua Yu's smiling face and didn't know whether to cry or to laugh. If they really believed that, then his hair would be in danger. Would they pick all his hair out, making him become a baldy? Is it really just a rumor? Hua Yu gazed at Yunshi with a meaningful look. There must be a reason for a rumor to begin. At least she knew that for her own change, there couldn't be any other explanation. Not only her, including Xiao Cao, the reason why the 37 female swordsmen gathered together and formed a team was all due to you're the only person who still doesn't know your value. Your black hair really has magical power. That's why the rumor about the black-haired girl is so reliable. Yes. My hair is very common, of course. Yunshi couldn't tell her that what changed these girls was not his hair, but his seeds. His black hair was just a medium. It didn't contain any magical power. If so, then, you are that unusual reason. Hua Yu accepted his explanation, but that made her more confident that Yunshi was special. Otherwise, it couldn't explain why her heart beat so fast when she stood beside Yunshi. She felt that something was growing in her heart, and it changed her physique bit by bit. That was the mysterious power which had helped her awaken her white gold rose bloodline and reach the second rank. I'm just a very common maid. Yunshi felt nervous and afraid. You are a great sword maid, who has the third maid's uniform killing princesses. You can't be common, Hua Yu said. She casually exposed Yunshi's lie. Yunshi didn't know how many girls in Western God's domain were eager for this great sword legacy. After all, it was one of the strongest careers in the whole Western God's domain. Attention! The ship is leaving. With the sound of the ship's whistle, the shipmaster's loud voice suddenly came from the top to the deck. Hoot! One white halo after another started to cover the whole floating ship. This meant that the ship, White Lotus, was going to leave. With the support of Heaven Road's Palace's perfect spells, even though the ship was suspended in the air several meters away from the ground, it was still as steady as it would have been on the ground. It even allowed Sword Palace's new disciples to gather on the deck and witness it with their naked eyes. Chapter 111. The Big World Boom. The big ship, White Lotus, ripped through one cloud after another, flying into the sky higher. Soon afterwards, White Lotus had flown into the sky and it was over 10,000 meters away from the ground. The boys and girls on the ship were very excited, because they were seeing the clouds under their feet for the first time in their lives. Even if hero-ranked creatures weren't very likely to have the ability to fly to this height. Only the ship, White Lotus, the gem of wisdom that was beyond mortal's limit, could leap over the distance, flying to this forbidden zone. The floating ship, White Lotus, looked like a huge white lotus inlaid on a floating ship. Every lotus petal was engraved with complicated patterns that made it form a single magical circle. When they linked together, these single magical circles formed a colossal, compounded magical circle. The 3,000 lotus petals were enough to block any hero-ranked creature's attack. The strongest attack unit in the whole White Lotus sword domain wasn't the master of White Lotus God's domain, but the floating ship. After spending over 100 years to build the floating ship, the airline from the sword handle area to the sword tip area hadn't even had a single accident. The Sword Palace's new disciples were lucky. Several hundred years ago, their predecessors had to walk across the long sword blade area to reach the legendary Holy Land, Sword Palace. Even though their team leader was an experienced hero-ranked teacher, they couldn't avoid all accidents. Once, one of the worst accidents had killed about half of the new disciples at that time. After that tragic accident, Sword Palace paid a few decades of their fiscal budget to build the ship White Lotus along with Heaven's Road Palace. At the center of the Lotus was the core of the floating ship. The twin witches were staying there. Now, Red Lotus was talking about sword skills with Hua Hua. Usually, Hua Hua was very interested in discussing sword skills with Red Lotus. However, she looked a little distracted now. She often turned back and gazed at the girls on the deck. What's up? Why do you care about them so much? These girls are not bad, but they can't compare to you. You are the most special one, Red Lotus said. She realized that Hua Hua was absent-minded, then also looked at the deck with a doubtful look. I have a foreboding, Hua Hua said. She stared at the several girls around Yun Shi, especially her elder female cousin, Who are you? Why can you occupy the closest place beside Yun Shi so easily? That should be my place. Even though you're my elder female cousin, I won't give little Shi to you. Hua Yu felt Hua Hua's scorching sight. She raised her head, waving her hands to Hua Hua with a pleasant look. Look. Hua Hua is looking at us. Oh, Hua Hua must feel worried. Yun Shi let out a sigh of relief. He wasn't used to Hua Yu's passion. Shouldn't an aristocratic miss be very reserved? Why was she so proactive? Did she find something wrong? My disguise should be flawless. Come here, Mai. I found a good place. Taking the opportunity that Hua Yu was distracted by Hua Hua, Xiao Cao held Yun Shi's hand and left the crowd. Xiao Cao's mortal's sword talent was a great help. She could always find an interesting place which ordinary people wouldn't discover. Now, they were at the forefront of the ship, where a lotus-shaped figurehead was placed. It was said that the ships in Western God's domain often used mermaid-shaped figureheads, but the ships in Eastern God's domain didn't have this specific requirement. Different sword domains in Eastern God's domain used different figureheads. White Lotus's figurehead was a beautiful lotus throne. It was covered in warm white lights, which protected it from any potential storms and moisture. Isn't this a forbidden zone? Yun Shi had noticed the lotus throne a while ago, but when he tried to come here, he had felt that an invisible force stopped him. The force was used to tell them that no one was allowed to enter this place. It doesn't matter. I have found a method to enter here, Xiao Cao said with a nonchalant expression. She casually sat beside Yun Shi, then took off her shoes. Her feet were white and tender. The size of her soles were perfect and her toes were as round as pearls. When I was very small, I often imagined what the world outside town looked like. The uncles and aunts in the village told me that if I didn't leave the town, I would miss many good things. As they said, after I left the town, I met many people and learned many things I couldn't learn in the town. In the outside world, there are good people and bad people. There are people who are weaker than me and there are people who are stronger than me. If I didn't leave the town, I wouldn't have known that the world was so big. Look, Mai. This is the sky. Xiao Cao held Yun Shi's hand and let him sit beside her. And we are flying. We are flying in the very, very high sky. Xiao Cao started singing. Her voice was clear and melodious, and her song was naive, but contained inornate sincerity. When Yun Shi heard the song, he felt that there was an invisible hand stroking him, making his heart feel relaxed and peaceful. He quietly watched the blue sky, the clouds which constantly disappeared and appeared under his feet, and the big, bright sun. Everything was so refreshing and bracing. Unlike when he looked at the sky from the ground, when he really stood above the clouds, he really felt his insignificance and the boundlessness of the world. Under the blue sky, even the ship White Lotus, which was 3 kilometers long, also looked like a leaf in the boundless sea. Hey! Xiao Cao was suddenly interested. She bared her feet and jumped around, looking at Yun Shi with a bright smile. Mai. Come see more beautiful scenes with me. It's a very, very wonderful feeling to be beside you, Xiao Cao said. She opened her hands wide and shouted at the endless sky, Xiao Cao and Mai will be best friends forever. Her hands were small, but in Yun Shi's eyes, she had hugged the entire sky in her arms. She basked in the golden sunshine, as glamorous as a golden fairy. Oh, Xiao Cao was so cute. Chapter 112. The door in the clouds. In the gloaming above the sea of clouds, the huge ship, White Lotus, rode the wind and waves, flying towards Sword Palace. The endless sea of clouds swept past White Lotus. The height was already beyond the limit any normal living being could reach. Even eagles couldn't fly to this height. Only the sound of air billowing was following White Lotus. During the flight, the ship didn't even have small vibrations. It was more stable than any large ship on the sea. A day passed, and the feeling of freshness had begun to fade away. Many Sword Palace's disciples had gone back to their rooms, practicing by themselves and waiting for their coming lives in Sword Palace. No matter whether they were formal disciples or just alternate disciples, everyone was struggling for their future. Yun Shi, Xiao Cao, Who Are You, and the other female swordsmen sneaked into the lotus throne-like area on the bow, which no one was allowed to enter for safety reasons. They watched White Lotus flying in the sky, parting the air like a ship breaking the wind and waves on the sea. Although the ship was about 3 kilometers long, but in the lotus throne-like area at the bow, it was crowded with these female swordsmen. Xiao Cao's stealth ability was like a bug. With her help, this forbidden zone completely opened up to the girls. That's too high. Incredible. Is this White Lotus's true speed? Why is it so fast? How can it be so steady at this speed? The girls huddled together and looked around, clicking their tongues at the magical-like power the White Lotus showed. The ship is about 10 times faster than sound velocity. According to the sun's position and the mountains under the ship, Who Are You had figured out the ship's speed. It was so fast, but the people on the ship didn't even feel a bit of wind or increase of gravity. It was all due to the magical spells engraved on the ship. The mortals in the sword handle area wouldn't even see such a miracle once during their lifetimes, not to mention understand it. So, the ship has flown over 300,000 kilometers. Yun Shi calculated the distance, then surprisedly found that he had traveled such a long distance from the sword handle area. Most of the people who lived in the small town wouldn't go to a place 100 kilometers away from their town. To them, their world was only within about 100-mile radius. After all, only very few people had the luck to use the floating ship, White Lotus. That's not a long distance. If you take the Star Bridge, you can leap across dozens of light years in a day. Of course, the star bridges only link the mortal worlds. For security and political reasons, all the gods' domains don't allow building a star bridge in their core areas. Inside each god's domain, only air units like the floating ship can be called the ultimate force. Even in the whole Sky Sword god's domain, White Lotus is the only top-class floating ship. Its weapon system can even suppress the whole sword domain. It's the safest mode of travel. Who Are You explained the special meaning of White Lotus and placidly moved close to Yun Shi. Her breast's softness and resiliency made Yun Shi's face turn red. Is this a special intimate activity between girls? What should he do? Yun Shi knew nothing about this. He didn't know if he should accept it or refuse it. The seed was growing. Yun Shi could clearly feel that due to Who Are You's intimate behavior, her seed were growing fast. Why? As a perfect aristocratic miss, her actions were too resolute. Was this also a part of a lady's education? Look. The setting sun is so beautiful. Oh. It looks like the sky is burning. Wait. Look at that spot. Is something in the clouds? The girl's screams awakened Yun Shi. He raised his head, witnessing the fantastic scene together with all the female swordsmen. At the farthest horizon, yellow, black, and green clouds formed a tremendous vortex, rotating at an incredible speed. Red, blue, and purple lightning cheerfully jumped back and forth amongst the clouds. Their lights broke through the rain curtain, illuminating the whole sky as bright as day. The whole world was divided into 2 pieces by a rainbow-like light. Half of the sky was covered with lightning and storms. The edge of the lightning was so bright and magnificent. It traversed the line between the sky and the sea, stretching away like a boundless wall. Even if the wall had an end, it must be at hundreds of miles away. The other half of the sky still looked normal. As if there was a god controlling the lightning, they stopped in front of an invisible dividing line and none of them overstepped the boundary. On the borderline, a blue door was opening slowly. What's this? Is there such a thing existing in the airline? The twin witches stood up together. Red Lotus drew out her sword, and White Lotus started to divine. The door, Yunshi looked at the door in shock. It was familiar. He was all too familiar with that door. He had seen this door countless times in his dream and imagined what was behind the door. Now, the door had suddenly emerged. Not in his dream, but in the real world. Then, where was the door guardian? Where was that girl who had always appeared in his dream and killed him countless times? He had never forgotten her 3 strands of icy blue hair, the sword-shaped ribbon at her waist, and her blue sword which was always put in front of the closed door. Bang! 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 Earth-shaking knocking sounds came from behind the door, echoing between heaven and earth. As the lightning flashed and the thunder roared, visible distortions and oscillations appeared on the door, as if something was trying to break the door by force. No. I have figured out it. White Lotus, make a turn at full speed. Red Lotus and White Lotus almost shouted at the same time. Red Lotus's battle instinct was warning her, and White Lotus had figured out the danger by observing the chaotic environment. Unfortunately, it was too late. Before the ship, White Lotus, turned, an invisible wave had leaked out from the crack in the door. Boom! The huge White Lotus turned over in the air as if it was a leaf in furious billows. Chapter 113, Intruder Wohoa. What's that? No, it's coming. The girls at the bow were the first to bear the shock waves. Even though the ship's magical defense circle had blocked over 99% of the shock waves, but the remainder still made the ship rotate in the sky. However, that was just the beginning. Bang! 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 As the banging sounds echoed throughout heaven and earth, the knocking sounds from the door were becoming stronger and stronger, clearer and clearer. As if there was an indestructible boundary in the air, and now, it was being broken and crushed. Everyone, on full alert. White Lotus, entering avoidance mode. In all of Red Lotus's days alive, this was the first time that she encountered such a dangerous event of which she didn't even know how she could avoid it. No matter whether it was the door which suddenly emerged in the clouds, or the thing which was going to break the door, they were all beyond her capability. Sister, be careful. That thing is going to break the door. White Lotus's face looked shaky. She had a premonition of what was going to happen. If it wasn't because of the bright lights emitted from her star and moon's ring dispelling a part of the terrible breath spreading from behind the door, she wouldn't even be able to stand up. The stronger you were, the more danger you would feel. She clearly knew how terrible the thing behind the door was. Damn it! How can such a terrible monster come to this sword domain? The world's rules doesn't support it to do this. Hua's reaction wasn't any better than White Lotus. The door that suddenly appeared was too inexplicable. No, it's not safe here. We should jump off the ship. Even Hua didn't think that she could beat down the monster behind the door. Even if she tried her best, the best outcome would be to escape with Yunshi. As for the other people, she could only pray for their luck. How could the rules of Sky Sword God's domain support such a monster to come to this sword domain? Was the world going to be destroyed? The door and the monster behind the door were something that absolutely shouldn't appear in this sword domain. White Lotus sword domain was like a waveless pond that was used to keep fish fries, and the monster behind the door was like a great white shark that was suddenly thrown into the pond. No, maybe the monster wasn't just a great white shark. It could even be more dangerous, like a whale. Even if this kind of creature just appeared in the sword domain and did nothing, its very existence was already able to shake the world's structure, or even make the world collapse. Bang! The seemingly indestructible blue door finally started to collapse under the unknown monster's attacks. A crack suddenly appeared in its center. At first, it was just a negligible crack that could be barely observed. However, as the old saying goes, a small leak will sink a great ship. Soon afterwards, the second crack, the third crack, the fourth crack, countless cracks appeared on the door. When the people on the ship saw these cracks with their naked eyes, it was already too late. A gust of waves spread out from the door. Even the ship White Lotus, which was protected by a compounded magical circle which could block all hero-ranked attacks, was still as weak as a paper in front of the wave. After losing the magical circle's protection, White Lotus shook in the air like a feeble girl. It couldn't block the terrible shockwaves any longer. The disciples who were living in the ship didn't even know what was happening. They were thrown to the ceiling or the floor at this time. Some of them couldn't handle the pressure and vomited everywhere. Be careful. Everyone, hold each other's hand. The female swordsmen were all on the bow. They held each other's hands, withstanding the terrible shockwaves together. With Yunxi's seed's help, they perfectly gave full play of their abilities. After gathering everyone's strength, they finally survived the shockwaves. However, the most terrible thing was just coming. Ding, ding, ding. Glass-breaking sounds resounded in the air. However, the thing that was breaking wasn't glass but the blue door. Breaking the void. Forced space leap. Transcended power. Red Lotus, White Lotus, and Hua Hua shouted at the same time. They said different words, but meant the same thing. The monster was breaking the void, coming to this world from a place which was maybe 10 million light-years away. This monster couldn't belong to Sky Sword God's domain, but an intruder who had the ability to leap through the void. As a boy who was born in the small town, Yunxi couldn't image what it was. However, as the future masters of White Lotus Sword Domain and the successor of Sky Flying Bloodline, the twin witches and Hua Hua knew of its power clearly. As a monster who could break the door, it was at least at the 8th rank, or higher. The strongest person in White Lotus Sword Domain was only at the 6th rank. In this case, the monster was even able to destroy the whole sword domain as easy as a piece of cake. Countless fragments divided in the sky, turning into beautiful blue light points. However, in Red Lotus, White Lotus, and Hua Hua's eyes, they were not beautiful light points but a dreadful sign, an unavoidable disaster. It's coming. White Lotus, give up defense and turn around at full speed. Red Lotus plunged her Red Lotus Holy Sword into the control platform and immediately turned off the ship's defense system. Anyway, the ship's magical defense circle was meaningless in front of the coming monster. The floating ship wasn't designed to fight against an 8th-ranked monster. It wouldn't even be stronger than a piece of paper in front of it. The best choice was to fly away as fast as possible. I have projected it out. Its body is about 100 kilometers long and its weight is as heavy as a star. Impossible to calculate more details. White Lotus couldn't believe the monster's information that she had calculated by using her skill, the Great Circle. Such a monster couldn't be born in any small sword domain like White Lotus Sword Domain. It was too massive. Even if it did nothing and just fell to the ground, it would definitely cause a violent earthquake, which may even be able to destroy the whole sword domain. Compared to the 8th-ranked monster, White Lotus Sword Domain was really too small. Chapter 114, The Apostle Comes Ku. 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 Unknown sounds came from nowhere, echoing between the heaven and the earth and shaking all people's souls. The clouds, lightning, and storms had all suddenly vanished. A silver paranormal creature swam out from the broken door. Its body was over 100 kilometers long. Its head looked like a translucent diamond with 3 silver horns. Under its head, at the center of its waist and on the place near its tail, there were 3 pairs of silver-blue wings. Its tail had 3 big caudal fins with noticeable wounds on them. Obviously, it was using the tail which was big enough to paddle in the void to knock the blue door. In the center of its diamond-like head, there was a giant silver gem. Its scarlet eyes were gazing at the ship, White Lotus, and the distant horizon. After it squeezed into the world from the door, the sky suddenly cleared up and all the clouds suddenly vanished. Endless blue spread to the end of the sky, which was so magnificent and gave people an illusion that the world was stopped at this time. White Flood Dragon. Its appearance made Red Lotus remember the Flood Dragon race. It was a quite famous race in Eastern God's domain. No, it isn't. White Lotus refuted Red Lotus's guess. She didn't think that it was an 8th-ranked flood dragon, for most true-bred dragons were only at the hero rank, not to mention half-blood flood dragon race. No, it's not a dragon belonging to Eastern God's domain. It is a white holy dragon, a natural fantasy species. The most beautiful holy dragon. Hua Hua realized the silver dragon's true identity. White holy dragon was an extremely rare dragon race. Hua had only read of their record in an ancient book. The silver gem on its forehead was a rare treasure called White Dragon's Crystal. Due to that, White Holy Dragon race had almost been exterminated 10,000 years ago. In addition to its White Dragon's Crystal, its wings, tail, fins, and scales could all be used to make powerful weapons. Because their hearts were too innocent, they were betrayed by the humans they trusted. As a result, the entire race was almost exterminated. After that, White Holy Dragons disappeared from Western God's domain and had become an old tale. Who would imagine that a White Holy Dragon would suddenly appear in a remote sword domain in the distant Eastern God's domain? It's looking for me. Hua's eyes suddenly became shrewd. So, they finally found her. As she had expected, the Dragon God wasn't willing to forgive the rebellious sky-flying bloodline. In her view, only the Dragon God, Asher's Dragon God's domain, still had a few White Holy Dragons. Why were you so cruel? In order to exterminate the dragon race's natural enemy, sky-flying bloodline, you actually sent the rare White Holy Dragon to kill me. Sorry, Little She, Red Lotus, White Lotus, and everyone, I implicated you. What? Yunshi's mouth parched and his tongue scorched. He dumbly gazed at the huge monster in the sunny sky, as if the lightning and dark clouds he saw just now was just some jokes. Not only Yunshi. All the people who were gazing at the great creature were speechless. They couldn't find any words to describe their shock, for the distance amongst their life forms were too great. Master, be careful. It is that apostle. As anxiety swept through Yunshi's heart, he heard Maya's voice in his mind. Are you kidding me? You are saying that this monster is the 7th-ranked apostle? Yunshi opened his mouth wide, gazing at the dragon in shock. It was really a beautiful creature, however, its behavior of breaking the door by force and its huge body were enough to disarm everyone's fighting will. This was one of his ex-girlfriend's apostles, the enemy he would soon face. Well, it has probably upgraded recently. It is already at the 8th rank now. After all, it's one of your ex-girlfriend's apostles. Its talent must be very good, Maya whispered haltingly. What can I do? I don't think that I can defeat it. Yunshi gazed at the White Holy Dragon with a desperate look. He found that the biggest crisis in his life suddenly appeared in front of him. It was more dangerous than the green hippo he had defeated. Even if there were 1,000,000 green hippos, they would be nothing if compared to the apostle. How long had he awakened his ability as the Star Child? Why did he meet such a monster so early? This wasn't as simple as a joke. He would die. Don't worry. It should have just known that you are in this sword domain but doesn't know your specific location. This should be just a regular search. Master, you should be careful. You'd better never turn off your greatsword maid's uniform. If it finds you, you won't have any chance to escape. Okay. I see. Yunshi let out a sigh of relief. So, he hadn't exposed his true identity and this was just the apostle's regular search. Fortunately, the worst situation didn't happen. He shouldn't give up hope till the last second. Coo! 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 The White Holy Dragon scanned the small sword domain for a while, then suddenly swung its tail. As if the ship, White Lotus, was just a negligible leaf but not the strongest weapon of the whole White Lotus sword domain, the White Holy Dragon's tail easily swung the ship down from the sky. After that, the silver crystal on the dragon's forehead emitted endless lights, wrapping the whole core area of White Lotus sword domain into its range. Pearl. 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 Yunshi heard the sound of flowing water. He felt that the water was very close, but also at a very far away place. Master, was someone calling him? Master, wake up. This is not good. Maya's worried voice echoed in Yunshi's ears. He ground his teeth and strenuously opened his eyes. His mouth was full of the taste of seawater. He wanted to vomit, but couldn't vomit anything. Cough. Cough. Yunshi coughed on the beach. Maya continuously licked his face to help him clean the seaweed on his face. Did we fall overboard? Yun 11 vaguely remembered that he saw a boundless sea when the ship, White Lotus, dropped from the sky. He remembered that the twin witches were casting a protection magic on everyone, and his childhood sweetheart was trying her best to fly towards him at that time. Unfortunately, Hua didn't catch up to him. She was blown away by the floating ship's wreckage. After that, his memory blanked. Chapter 115. In stranded Yoon, she remembered the last scene he had seen before he fell from the sky. The white holy dragon, which was to be one of his ex-girlfriend's apostles, swept its tail. Then the strongest air fortress in the whole sword domain, White Lotus, was knocked down and disintegrated in the air. The ship's bow and stern were directly stripped from the ship, and the lotus-like throne, which was engraved with countless magical defense circles, also turned into countless fragments, floating and swaying in the sky. When the ship disintegrated, the shock wave almost stunned everyone on the ship. At first, the female swordsmen were still holding each other's hands trying to withstand the pressure, but they failed. They fell, separated from each other. Cough. Is this the enemy I will soon face? Yoon-shi leaned against a coconut tree on the beach, gazing at the massive ship fragments floating on the sea. The most noticeable fragment was the lotus throne that was only 30% of its original size, but still emitted soft lights. It attracted countless fish to come here. Amongst the fish, there even broke out a war to fight for ownership of the remaining White Lotus throne. Yoon-shi could see water columns spraying out of the water from time to time. Master, don't be frustrated. As long as you are still becoming stronger and stronger, you will be able to beat down that apostle someday. Maya continuously picked useful materials from the ship's wreckage on the beach. Her mental state was 100 times better than Yoon-shi. Well, you really trust me, Yoon-shi sighed. He didn't have his previous life's memory, so he also didn't know how strong he was. After all, he was just a second-ranked swordsman now. He had the confidence to reach the third rank in a short period, but that didn't mean he wanted to face the 8th-ranked apostle. If the apostle found him, no one could save him. Master is the greatest presence. This is the reason why the 4 overlords fight for you. Moreover, if you didn't create me, I wouldn't come to this world. Several fish were stunned by the shockwave and washed onto the beach. Maya held them in her mouth and gazed at Yoon-shi with an adoring look. I'm really curious about how I could have had 4 overlord-ranked girlfriends in my last life. Yoon-shi complained about the mistake he made in his last life. After a while, he regained a little of his energy. He surely couldn't beat down the 8th-ranked apostle. However, the apostle had disappeared, seeing that it hadn't found out that he was on the ship. White Lotus's misfortune was just an accident. It had just gotten in the apostle's way. Anyway, I want to go on living. Maya, come back. Yoon-shi whistled, then Maya turned into a golden light and flew into Yoon-shi's body. Yoon-shi could let Maya stay in his body in the star elf form. He had naturally understood how to use this ability after he awakened his memory as the Star Child. The little star elf had 2 forms, an entity form as the golden dog, and a virtual body form as the star elf. When Yoon-shi first met Maya, he didn't have enough power to let Maya turn into the star elf form. This was one of the rewards he had obtained after he completed the formal trial. I hope that other people are still alive, Yoon-shi murmured. He closed his eyes, searching for other people through his seeds. According to his memory, the crash site depended on the location when they were on the ship, which meant that the female swordsmen were very likely to drop into the nearby sea area. 1, 2, 3. Yoon-shi carefully counted the number of the seeds which were still linked with him, then let out a sigh of relief. The protection magic the twin witches cast at the last moment had worked very well. None of the female swordsmen had died. 37 seeds were still linked with him. That was really something worth celebrating. Yoon-shi vaguely figured out the distance between him and the girls through the seeds. He couldn't clearly feel the twin witches, Hua, Millie, Phyllis and Yi Li obviously, they were at different, but very far away places. Yu, Xiao Cao and other female swordsmen were very close to him. Even if they were not on the island, their locations wouldn't be far away. I need to hurry up and save them. With the guide of the seeds, Yoon-shi used the skill Quicksilver Motion, running towards a place on the island at his full speed. Even though they fell from the same place, but due to the White Holy Dragon's shockwave and the airstream caused due to White Lotus's disintegration, they dropped into different places. The first girl Yoon-shi found was Yu. She hadn't fallen into the sea, but hung onto a large coconut tree. She was in a coma due to the massive impact. Her full breasts were hanging on a branch. Her gorgeous dress was already in shreds and patches, exposing her snow-white skin. If it wasn't because the white light on her body protected her when she fell from the sky, she would already be dead. Who are you? Wake up. Yunxi touched her forehead to feel her temperature and anxiously called her name, trying to wake her up. Cough. Cough. Am I dead? Who are you? Slowly opened her eyes, then saw a heaven-like scene. Fresh air, bright sunlight, boundless blue sky, and a black-haired girl who was hugging her in her arms and looking at her with a warm and worried look. Ah, is this the heaven? Who are you? Thought in her heart. If this was her life after death, it looked pretty nice. No, you are not dead. We fell from the sky. Are you injured? Yunxi looked at Who are you with a worried look because she was still coughing. Oh, I'm not dead. Thank you. Are my ribs broken? Who are you? Quickly realized what happened. Well, this wasn't heaven, but the girl who was hugging her in her arms was her real angel. Staying alive is better than anything, Yunxi comforted her. He had tasted too many deaths. They were really some of his most horrible memories. Yes. You are here, so I won't go to the afterlife, Who are you? Said with a smile. She struggled, trying to stand up. As a knight who had white golden rose bloodline, how could she surrender to her minor injuries? Even if she would die with vigor and vitality. Where are we? Yunxi supported Who are you with his hand. Who are you? Looked around and her eyes gradually became calm. I have good news and bad news, Yunxi smiled bitterly. He told Who are you his guess. The good news is that we are still alive. I think that other people are also alive. The bad news is that this place is probably located in the core area of White Lotus Sword Domain. We all know that this place is a forbidden zone, for it may have legendary hero-ranked monsters. You mean, we are in stranded? Who are you? Correctly judged the situation. Yes. Not only us. I'm afraid that all the people that had been on the ship are in stranded now. Chapter 116, Search and Rescue. We fell in the nearby area, which means that there may be other people stranded here. Who are you was really an excellent aristocratic miss who had inherited white gold rose bloodline. She quickly analyzed the situation. They are all on this island and the nearby areas, Yunxi answered. He felt the seeds again, making sure that no other female swordsmen were in danger. However, for some reason he didn't know, his feeling about Huahua's seed and the Twin Witch's seeds were becoming more and more difficult to perceive. Well, put me down and let us go look for the others, Who are you? Said. She looked around and made a decision. Don't worry about me. I can still move. The most important thing now is to search for them. Are you really okay? Yunxi looked at Who are you with worry. He knew that her ribs were broken. I have white gold rose bloodline. I'm not that weak a girl. Who are you? Looked around and found a place which was suitable to be their temporary foothold. That was a platform on a barren rock wall, which was a really good place to observe the surrounding environment. Even if they encountered monsters, the terrain could help them resist for a period of time. Besides, her white gold rose bloodline could let her recover herself 10 times faster than ordinary people. She would be able to recover 70% of her power after about 10 hours. Rip. Who are you? Tore her ripped dress to make bandages to bind up her broken ribs. After that, she worked on the platform to build their temporary camp. As for Yunxi, he was quickly running towards the backland of the island. Go. Look for everyone and save them. You are the strongest and the best of us. You should know that with great power comes great responsibility. Who are you's words were still echoing in Yunxi's heart, which really made him look at her with new eyes. So, not all aristocratic misses were hothouse flowers, at least, Who are you wasn't a feeble girl. Here. Soon afterwards, Yunxi found another girl who was in a coma. She was one of the female swordsmen. Her condition was better than Who are you. Although her clothes was also ripped, but she had fallen onto a thick and soft creep cluster which greatly reduced the impact. Ling Ling, wake up. Yunxi remembered her name. She was one of Hua Yu's subordinates and came from a declined noble family. Woho. Am I dead? Ling Ling faintly opened her eyes, then saw the blue sky, white clouds, and a black-haired angel. You are not dead. Who are you is waiting for you. She had a complex feeling. Why did they think that they had died when they saw him? Oh, I'm not dead. What a pity. I thought that I was in heaven. Ling Ling looked regretful, then was helped up by Shi. Ari. Gee. My. Ling Ling blushed. She was at a loss in Shi's arms. We can talk later. Let us go to Hua Yu's place first. As the only uninjured person, Shi's physical strength was still at its peak. He held Ling Ling in his arms and continuously performed quicksilver motion. He didn't only obtain understanding and experience about sword skills from the 37 female swordsmen. Something else also flowed into his heart. Therefore, when he took Ling Ling up in his arms, he didn't feel that it was inappropriate. Similarly, Ling Ling also didn't resist his behavior. She just blushed with her heart pounding heavily. Isn't this my heaven? Ling Ling glanced at Shi with a sweet feeling in her heart. I have found one. After entrusting Ling Ling to Hua Yu, Shi didn't take a rest. He immediately jumped down from the platform and started to search for other survivors. After finding Hua Yu and Ling Ling, Shi felt that he was more familiar with his seed searching system. Within 3 hours, he had found 17 girls from the area within a 10-mile radius. However, as he kept searching, he was more and more confused about something. That's so strange. How could we all fall on the same island? At the same time, Hua Yu had become the temporary leader of these female swordsmen. She also considered this question. She didn't know the existence of Shi's seeds. In that case, she was more puzzled about how Shi could find so many people so quickly. In terms of probability, it's impossible. They fell from the ship more than 10,000 meters high in the sky. Even if they were holding each other's hands when they fell, it was still impossible that their landing locations were so close. The next 10 hours, Shi was still looking for the girls. Not surprisingly, he found almost all the remaining girls. When Shi found them, they were all in a coma with vague white lights protecting them. Some of them fell on trees, some of them were dropped on creep clusters, and some of them were washed onto the beach just like Shi himself. 36 people. Where is Xiao Cao? Shi put the last girl he found on the platform, then gasped for air as his brows frowned. By relying on the seeds, he could vaguely judge the distance between him and the girls. In order to find the 36 girls, he had almost gone around the whole island. However, Xiao Cao's seed wasn't on the island but in the sea. He didn't know the exact location and could only figure out the general direction. You must be tired, Mai. Yes, Mai, you should take a rest. Come here, do you want to drink water? Thank you, Mai. I don't know what would have happened if we didn't have you. The girls surrounded Shi with concern. Via the threads of their seeds, Shi could feel their sincerity. Their eyes also proved that they weren't lying. Thanks. But I must find everyone, otherwise, I won't get to rest. Shi drank the cold water. He wiped his mouth, then jumped off the platform again. Since the seed had pointed out the direction for him, then no matter where Xiao Cao was, he must find her. They were a team of 37 female swordsmen. No one could be less. Chapter 117. Xiao Cao in the moonlight. Shi stood on the beach, staring at the changing weather with a dumbfounded look. The distant sky was as dark as ink, portending that a tempest was coming. Wind drove clouds and swallowed the shining stars. Under the sky, it was the boundless sea. The waves roared and billowed upon the dark sea. At dusk, the sea should show the most beautiful scene, however, the coming storm ruined everything. Shi still remembered that the sea was so peaceful at daylight, but now, it exposed its violent side. At the ends of the sea, the tempest was moving at an incredible speed. Lightning spread through the sky again and again, illuminating the clouds like burned snakes. Puff! The winds were coming. Clank! The storm was coming. This was the first time that Shi faced a storm's earth-shaking powers personally. In the storm, the heaven and the earth were inked, as dark as the winter in hell. The only light was the flashing lightning in the clouds and the white lotus throne floating on the sea. The smell of the sea came from a distance and rose up through the air. The rain dropped on Yun Shi's shoulders like it was raining cats and dogs, drenching his maid's black uniform. No. Xiao Cao. Yun Shi shuddered. He was planning to swim across the sea, but now, he recovered himself in the face of the violent sea storm. To mortals, once they were drawn into a sea storm, they wouldn't survive. Xiao Cao wouldn't be an exception. Maya. Yun Shi summoned his star elf. How can I lock onto Xiao Cao's position? Yun Shi anxiously looked at the small golden dog. His only hope now was the star's love system. Do you mean her seed? As Yun Shi's system elf, Maya could also see the thread between Yun Shi and the girls. Yes. She is in danger. I must save her. Yun Shi ground his teeth. Even if the storm was so horrible, he had no intention on giving up. He must save everyone. Don't worry, my master. Feel her seed by your heart. Mer jumped to Yun Shi's shoulder and licked his ear. Her seed. Yun Shi closed his eyes and felt the seed's direction in his heart. Was it his imagination? He felt that Xiao Cao's seed getting closer and closer. It's not an illusion. Look, she is coming. Yun Shi felt then. He not only felt Xiao Cao's breath, but also including a strange creature's breath, which was much bigger and amazing. On the dark sea, a streak of white light beam was emitting lights and quickly moving towards Yun Shi from the faraway heavy waves. As the white light beam moved, the waves were suppressed and the sea suddenly became peaceful. Even the inked sky was illuminated by its light. Yun Shi could feel that the creature who was emitting the white light beam from its body was even strong enough to dispel the storm. Although it couldn't be compared to the white holy dragon, it was still a great being that was far beyond ordinary people's imagination. Ha! A clear voice echoed between the heaven and the earth. The great being in the sea was dispelling the storm. The storm and winds already blotted out the sky and covered the sun, but now, they faded in the face of the loud, clear and song-like voice. The crescent moon shined its cold lights on the boundless waves, and a few sparse stars blinked in the dark blue sky. The sea breezes hummed, and the veil-like moonlight carried the soft night wind, dancing amongst the spoondrift on the dark sea. Between heaven and earth, the white light looked holy and tranquil, as if there was an invisible hand that was wiping off the storm. Yun Shi gazed at the miraculous scene. He was really at a loss for words. Compared to the white holy dragon, this fantastic creature's power of suppressing the storm wasn't that incredible. However, its power was more natural, as if it was really a part of the cycle of natural processes. A few moments later, several black figures left the white light and swam to Yun Shi. On the dark water, the several black figures met and parted, sank and swam, but always kept themselves in a loose formation. Yun Shi could see curved knife-like dorsal fins on their black back. Every once in a while, they would spout out water from their forehead with buzz sounds. Sometimes, one or two black figures would leap from the water, exposing their oval white spots in the air. Their streamlined bodies gave Yun Shi an ineffable sense of power and speed. Discontinuously, they made song-like sounds that echoed in the night sky. They sounded like the voice which dispelled the storm. Whales! Yun Shi looked at these big creatures and felt the growing of Xiao Cao's seed. He opened his eyes wide in surprise, because he had seen the girl, who was sitting on one of the killer whales without any clothes. Her healthy and slender body looked still like a child, and her freckled looked pretty innocent and pure. Under the moonlight, her skin looked strange but attractive. Yun Shi could clearly see her slender legs, soft and arched feet and her slightly opened toes. Her belly was smooth and compact, showing a kind of healthy beauty. Was she Xiao Cao? Was she really the girl in Yun Shi's memory? Her body was so energetic as if something in her body was suddenly released after the disaster. Her temperament had undergone drastic change. Not only her temperament. Her power had also changed. She was already at the 3rd rank now. What had happened to her while she was missing? Chapter 118. Bite What Happened? Where had she changed? Yun Shi checked Xiao Cao's seed, trying to find an answer. Soon afterwards, he found her changes. Xiao Cao's seed, Mortal's sword, perfect. The person who held this sword had practiced the Mortal's sword skill to the limit, Due to that, the person would be able to learn any high-level sword skills 2 times faster than ordinary people. Mind's eye, incomplete, a kind of insight learning from practice and exercise. It could help the owner analyze the environment and catch the tiniest opportunity to reverse the situation. Combat intuition, partly awakened. This ability could help the owner analyze the battle trend and respond to it in advance. At any time, the owner of this ability could use 100% strength. Persevering heart. The grass-like girl had a persevering heart. It could help her open the door to a higher rank. The Great Road, partly opened in the long river of fate. Some people were blessed by the goddess of fortune. Even if they were still mortals, they were fated to create legends. After reading the last information, Yunxi realized that he was witnessing a new legend's birth. She was going to step on her own great road. Xiao Cao was blessed by destiny itself. She had made the first move of her legend. Her natural posture and renewed temperament were the proofs of her rebirth. Yunxi still didn't know what had happened to her, but he could see her changes. My. Yunxi was lost in his thought, till Xiao Cao jumped off the black whale she rode, ran to him and called him. He finally returned to the real world. Ah, Xiao Cao. Welcome back. Yunxi hesitated. Sorry, I don't know what to do at a time like this. You can just smile, Xiao Cao answered. Sorry to keep you waiting. She deftly stood on her toes, then held Yunxi in her arms and kissed him. She put her small tongue into Yunxi's mouth and forcibly stirred. Oh! Under Xiao Cao's surprise attack, Yunxi unconsciously put out his tongue. After feeling that, Xiao Cao enthusiastically sucked his tongue. Yunxi heard Xiao Cao's breathing and groan, feeling that her body was so soft as if she didn't have bones. Xiao Cao's kiss was a little strange. After swallowing plenty of Yunxi's saliva, she tried to use her tongue to touch every corner of Yunxi's mouth. A large amount of sweet saliva flowed into Yunxi's mouth. Some of them flowed out from the corner of his mouth, hanging in the air like a silver wire. Finally, Yunxi struggled and put Xiao Cao away, for her kiss had almost made him suffocating. Who taught Xiao Cao such an erotic style of kissing? He was almost dried up. Looking at Xiao Cao, Yunxi couldn't believe that she had changed so much. In his memory, Xiao Cao was a girl who was clumsy in daily life and only focused on practicing her sword skill. Not enough, Xiao Cao seemingly didn't want to give up. Even Yunxi had pushed her away, she still launched the second offensive. Wow. Patter. Oh yeah. Go. Was it his illusion? Yunxi felt that there were other people. They were peeping at him and making inexplicable sounds. Xiao Cao seemed to be encouraged by someone. She opened her mouth again. However, Yunxi had covered his mouth with his hands. In that case, she could only put out her small tongue to help Yunxi clean the saliva on his neck. As her smooth, soft tongue licked and her warm lips brushed through, nothing was remaining on Yunxi's neck. As she licked, Yunxi's heart suddenly beat faster. His neck felt a sharp pain, because Xiao Cao was biting on his neck, for he refusing her kiss. My friends are saying that if you still resist, I can bite you, Xiao Cao said dangerous words with an innocent face as she gazed at Yunxi's eyes. Yunxi didn't know if it was his illusion, however, when Xiao Cao said that, a sense of love exposed on Xiao Cao's face, which made her look more pretty. Bite? How? Yunxi covered his neck with his hand, but didn't see any malice in Xiao Cao's eyes. Like this. Xiao Cao slightly opened her mouth. Her eyebrows raised, which looked so soft as if it was drawing the same soft curves in Yunxi's heart, making him feel itch. Stand on your toes, find the target, then bite on it. This was the perfect strategy Xiao Cao's friends were telling her. Yes, friends. Your best friends. The friends you want her to stay with forever. Yes, don't relax your bite. Yes, you must be active and enthusiastic. She is a pretty trustworthy friend. You should never let her go. For mating and love, for you friendship, you must be proactive. Oh, Xiao Cao didn't doubt her friend's words. She bit Yunxi's lips again and enjoyed the feeling. Xiao Cao, what was that bad friend? How could you teach my Xiao Cao so many wrongful knowledge? Xiao Cao, break it with that bad friend. The great road was still waiting for you. You shouldn't be slatternly. Yunshi felt his lower abdomen grow hot. One of his body part was going to raise its head. No. I can't expose my identity here. The apostle is still near. I can't remove my disguise now. However, I can't hold on any longer. For God's sake, Xiao Cao's healthy and flexible breasts were pressing my chest. They are a pair of all too powerful weapons. Woho. Patter. Patter. Pa 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 pa. Under the moonlight, they peeked at the black-haired girl's perplexed expression, translucent skin, soaked maid's black uniform, and puff, puff, puff. A lot of blood spurted into the sea and dyed the water red. Chapter 119. Tropical Temptation. After another long, gentle, sweet kiss, Yunshi was finally freed from Xiao Cao's offensive attacks and escaped his fate of being drowned in kisses. No. I must stop her. If she continued, Yunshi doubted how long could he stop one of his body parts raising. He took advantage of his height, decisively holding Xiao Cao in his arms. Because Yunshi was a head taller than Xiao Cao, he could easily take her whole body in his arms, stopping her wild attack in this weird manner. Xiao Cao. You are wrong. We are friends, but you can't do this to your regular friends. Yunshi strenuously suppressed his desire and tried to persuade Xiao Cao at the same time. Regular friends can't do this. Then what kind of friends can do this? Xiao Cao asked with curiosity. Her tongue softly touched and slipped around Yunshi's neck, making him shiver as if he was getting an electric shock. Well, I have very few friends. Yunshi didn't know how to answer her question. He had tried this game with his childhood sweetheart many times, but none of them were as fervent as Xiao Cao. Xiao Cao's mysterious friend. What had you taught Xiao Cao? Puff, puff, whoa, 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 yo-ho, yo-ho. Yunshi heard strange sounds again. By the way, wasn't the temperature around him too warm? The storm was just dispelled and now it was really a sunny day. However, Yunshi felt hot as if he was in a tropical rainforest. Xiao Cao was hugged in his arms at this moment. She was like a colorful fish who was emitting bright lights, catching Yunshi's eyes tightly. Yunshi's hands touched Xiao Cao's skin. Her skin was so smooth and soft, not like a civilian at all. Yunshi remembered that her skin was rough due to her hard life and too much practice. What had exactly happened to Xiao Cao when she was missing? I also don't have too many friends. So, I'm glad to know that you are willing to be my friend, Xiao Cao said. Her voice was quiet and gentle, as warm as a strand of grass in the tropic sea. Why is Xiao Cao so cute? What is this feeling in my heart? Isn't the temperature around me too high? Puff, puff, pa 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 pa, drip, whoa, drip, again. What is the sound exactly? It didn't sound like the water or the waves slapping on the beach, but come from a more far-away place in the deeper water. Voila! The several whales leapt out of the water and passed by each other's. The water they carried formed a big heart-shaped symbol in the air. My new friends are saying that I can't let the chance slip. Mai is my best friend, Xiao Cao said firmly. As a girl from a remote and poor village, she didn't have any teacher or legacy. She was like a strand of grass in the wild, practicing her sword skill all by herself. She valued her friends more than anyone. Especially Mai. After taking a strand of her magical black hair, her whole world was turned upside down. If Xiao Cao was like a strand of grass in the wild in the past, then Yunshi's seed was like a drop of sweet dew, making her vibrant with life. Xiao Cao appreciated Yunshi's seed so much. She didn't good at speaking, so she just kept her gratitude firmly in her heart. Friend is important. Mai is special. Therefore, I want to be her best friend. I want to stay with her forever. We are best friends. Yunshi could only accept her. After all, who could refuse such an innocent girl? Even if Xiao Cao didn't have his seed, she was still an attractive girl. Who would not want to have such a friend? Mai is my friend. Xiao Cao smiled. She didn't take further steps, because that was all her friends had taught her. Bang, 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 puff, puff, puff. One giant, gratitude balloon after another shot up from the sea. They exploded and sprayed in the air, reflecting different color. Deep purples and bright reds. Emerald green and dark blue. White gold and not pink. Various color and different shapes made the small beach look like an aquarium, full of dreamy atmosphere. Is that your friend? Finally, Yunxi persuaded Xiao Cao to put on the clothes which he temporarily made by using leaves. After that, he looked at a location in the sea. Yes. A very, very beautiful new friend. But she is a little big. Xiao Cao nodded. Then pointed at her own skin, which was obviously more smooth and delicate than past. She let me drink her milk. Delicious and good for health. Milk. Very big. Thoughts thronged Yunxi's mind. That contained abundant information. Ha. Hi. Puff. Puff. Giant water waves shot up from the sea. The mysterious creature who carried Xiao Cao to the island started to dive. After a while, the creature and the several whales disappeared in the horizon. Has she gone? What a pity. I want to let my drink her milk too. Xiao Cao waved her hands to them with a regrettable look. What is its race exactly? Yunxi gazed at the sea. In the end, he still didn't know what Xiao Cao's friend was. My friend has big breasts. She is the biggest. Very beautiful, very soft, and take care of me very much, Xiao Cao said with a natural look, although her ambiguous describe really made Yunxi feel confused. However, this was not a problem. Xiao Cao had come back. He saved all the 37 female swordsmen. No one was less. Yunxi held Xiao Cao's hands with a bright smile, walking on the way leading to their camping ground. Help! Help me! Huo! Anybody here? Please help me! Suddenly and surprisedly, Yunxi heard a pitiful, cute, and heart-touching voice. Chapter 120, Silver-Haired Girl. Yunxi stopped, looking at the place the voice came from. Are there other people on the island? Yes, it is possible. Although Yunxi had only found these female swordsmen on the island through his seeds, but it was possible that other people on the ship, White Lotus, also drifted to this island. After all, White Lotus carried over 1,000 of people. Except for the twin witches and Hua, who he had confirmed that weren't on this island, it was very likely that there were other survivors here. Xiao Cao, let's go to save her. Since he had already saved 37 people, then there was no reason for him not to save more. Xiao Cao nodded, but her eyes looked very vigilant. Soon after, Yunxi followed the voice and found the only survivor apart from the 37 female swordsmen. Yunxi looked at the girl with a weird look, because the girl was gingerly hiding on a tree, and the monsters around the tree were several little animals Yunxi was very familiar with, squirrels. Xiao Cao grasped Yunxi's hands, motioning him to wait for a while. Don't misunderstand. She wasn't fear of the several little animals, who looked not dangerous at all and just surrounded the tree with curiosity. She was on guard against the girl, who should be their safe target at first. This was the same reason why Yunxi stopped. Well, who are you? Yunxi asked with a careful look. That was a girl whose clothes looked very exotic. No people in the whole Eastern God's domain would wear like that. She wore a big silver headwear on her head, which looked like a pair of silver bunny ears. 3 silver blue gems were studded on her forehead and her ears. Yunxi saw a big necklace on her neck, which said number 001 on it. He could saw a broken chain that was still hanging on it. Not only her neck. Her shoulders, arms, and waist were all constrained with similar restraints, which made her look like a prisoner who just escaped from the jail. In addition to these restraints, she only wore a dress which was as thin as a nightclothes. She didn't even wear shoes. Her naked feet were restricted by a pair of cold fetters. Maybe she felt cold, her cute toes curled like cat's paws. She looked shy and cute. Her translucent legs were smooth and soft. Yunxi looked down and noticed her feet, which were so perfect and flawless. Her 5 toes curled, forming 4 slightly bent curves, as if they were 5 flower buds in early puberty. Under her strange, big silver headwear, her face looked as delicate as a cute porcelain doll. Plus her innocent eyes and timid expression, She was as lovely as a timid rabbit. Yunxi noticed that there was a blue trace in the middle of her chest. It was a condensed ice crystal, which shouldn't have appeared in this season. Who? Help! The girl didn't see Yunxi and Xiao Cao. She covered her head in her hands, crouching like a hedgehog on the tree. Yunxi looked at the small tree, which was about 2 meters tall and was shaking due to the girl's weight and action, then looked at the several squirrels, who were merrily jumping up and licking the girl's soles. Well, did she really need help? That's strange, Xiao Cao murmured. Yes, that was too strange. Yunxi was sure that this girl wasn't one of Sword Palace's candidates. Her exotic clothes and ruber-like eyes were too conspicuous. He would have noticed her if she was on the ship. Yunxi didn't think that she was a native. In his view, her headwear should be very valuable. Probably it wouldn't be cheaper than White Lotus's star and moon's ring. Besides, the ice blue trace on her chest was also suspicious. This was a tropical island, but it was still frozen here. It couldn't be something ordinary. Although Yunxi couldn't judge her power with his naked eyes, however, he didn't think that the several squirrels, who actually could do no harm to her and seemingly just wanted to play with her, would be a threat to her. Even if a 3-year-old child wouldn't be scared by squirrels. Why was she so scared? Who? Help me. That's tickling. What monsters they are. Terrible. The silver-haired girl finally noticed Yunxi and Xiao Cao. She gazed at them with a pathetic look. Sigh, finally, Yunxi couldn't bear to see girls' tears. He whistled and tapped the ground with his feet. Hiss. The squirrels happily ran to Yunxi. They were not afraid of human at all. Yunxi picked off several wild fruits from the tree. The several squirrels joyfully ate them and ran away. Who? They are finally gone. After seeing the squirrels leaving, the silver-haired girl finally had the guts to climb down the tree. They are just squirrels. You don't need to afraid of them, Yunxi comforted her, but still didn't relax his vigilance, because he didn't see a speck of dust on her body. No person would be still spotless after falling from the sky. Who are you broke her bones and Xiao Cao lost her clothes. If the silver-haired girl fell down from the ship, she couldn't be unscathed. No, no, no. They are horrible demons. They got in my dress, did this thing and that thing to me. Woo! They were bullying me. The silver-haired alleged these squirrels' crimes with tears in her eyes. They are just squirrels. Yunxi was dumb and didn't know how to comment her words. Were you a princess, living like a flower in the greenhouse in your life? Why are you so innocent and timid? However, judging from her headwear, probably she was really a princess. This headwear, was she from Western God's domain? Thank you. I'm Miu Miu. Can you tell me where I am? Chapter 121, Abandoned Child Where? Don't you know where you are? Yunxi looked at the silver-haired girl peculiarly. Her name was Miu Miu. How could she be so naive? How could her parents allow such an innocent girl to leave her home alone? She needed a team of guards. I don't know. My head aches. I forget many things, Miu Miu said. She held her silver, bunny ears-like headwear with a troubled look. I remember that I was looking for my papa, but something happened on the halfway and I fell down. After I woke up, I was already on this island. Poor girl. Xiao Cao relaxed her vigilance. She realized that Miu Miu was harmless. Her threat degree wouldn't even be higher than a squirrel. Did you lost touch with your father? Yunxi's heart melted after seeing her worried look. Her worry was from the bottom of her heart. That couldn't be a disguise. Besides, Yunxi didn't think that this girl knew the meaning of disguise. Probably her head was hurt and forgot many common senses, for she didn't even know what the squirrels were. No. I'm looking for my papa, but we didn't lose touch with each other. Mom told me that papa abandoned us when I was very young. I need to find him after I grow up, Miu Miu said and proudly puffed out her chest, but the truth contained in her words was really poignant. Who are Miu Miu's father? How dare you to abandon such a cute child? Don't you have a heart? And Miu Miu's mother too. Why did you take such a little girl out the door? I know you want to see your husband again, but don't you know that the world is too dangerous to your daughter? Where is your mom? Yunxi looked around, trying to find where Miu Miu's mom was. I left home alone, because Mom said that I could leave now. Miu Miu blinked and told Yunxi the startling fact. What? You are too young. How could you leave home alone? Yunxi opened his eyes wide with a flabbergasted look. What a bad mother. Weren't you afraid that your child would be kidnapped? Judging from her silk-like clothes and her silver headwear, she must be from a rich family. Yunxi wouldn't be surprised if she said that she was a princess. How could such a princess-like girl leave home alone? Come here, little girl. Let's take you to a safe place. Yunxi stretched out his hands and softly held Miu Miu in his arms. She wasn't Xiao Cao, who could walk in the forest with her naked feet as easily as through walking upon a level road. Be careful. Although Xiao Cao had relaxed her vigilance, she still looked at Miu Miu with doubt, for she felt that something was wrong. Don't worry. She is just a harmless child, Yunxi said and put his seed into Miu Miu's thin body. His seed detected the girls inside and found that her true strength was feeble and pathetic, just like what she looked like. Warm, delicious, I'm sleepy. After having Yunxi's seed, Miu Miu gently stretched herself and slept in Yunxi's arms. Yunxi's heart melted as he gazed at her angel-like face. He didn't know the reason, but when he looked at her, he felt an indescribable affinity with her. He naturally knew that she wasn't dangerous and he had to protect her. Even her appearance was so sudden and mysterious. No. I don't mean that. Xiao Cao didn't know how to describe her heart of now. Was it hostility? To Xiao Cao, this was a very strange feeling. It was obviously that she liked to have friends. One person alone and two people together were two totally different situations. Sharing your happiness with your friend, the happiness would be doubled. Sharing your sadness with your friend, your sadness would be reduced to 1 second. It was always so happy when she stayed together with Mai. However, unlike Hua Yu or other female swordsmen, when Xiao Cao saw the girl, she suddenly had a foreboding that her Mai would be taken away. The girl named Miu Miu had a natural spiritual attraction, catching her eyes like a magnet. Maybe Miu Miu didn't do it by intention and that was her natural talent. But, she is my enemy. Xiao Cao took a deep breath, remembering the words her new friends told her. You can only have one best friend. If she is your only one, don't let her go. Become her most important person. Love. Cough, for your sacred friendship, don't lose. Puff, puff. Xiao Cao patted her own face. She gazed at Mai and Miu Miu in Mai's arms with a determined look. Xiao Cao won't lose. Puff, puff. As Xiao Cao and Yunxi returned, the girls were clumsily putting up tents on the platform. The female swordsman immediately saw them. Mai, Xiao Cao, welcome back. Great. Now everybody is here. No one is less. What a miracle. Mai found everyone. After their hearty welcome, they found the little angel who was sleeping in Yunxi's arms. Her silver hair, which obviously didn't belong to Eastern God's domain, and her snow white, were too eye-catching. Ah! Who is this child? Was she on White Lotus? Why don't I remember her? Mai, where did you find her? Yunxi told them Miu Miu's story. After that, everyone looked at Miu Miu with compassion. Who? She is so young, but she has the guts to look for her father alone. That man who abandoned his wife and Miu Miu must be a bastard. How could he abandon such a cute child? He is really a scum. The girl's mom must be a beauty. How can any man have the heart to abandon them? I can't understand that. Yes. What a heartless bastard her father is. Yunxi had the same feeling. Any people who dared to do such a thing would be cursed with bad luck during their lives. Ah! Miu Miu was awakened. She slowly opened her eyes, and her ruber-like big eyes made the girls scream. She is so cute. No. Her appearance is too dangerous to my heart. If I can have a child like her, I can die without anything to regret. Hi, is your name Miu Miu? Don't worry. There are no bad men here, only beautiful big sisters. Humph. There is no good man ever living in this world. They should die. Well. Yunxi embarrassedly looked at himself. What an unexpected allegation. Chapter 122, Hunger Crisis. After the storm, The originally safe platform was muddy now. Fortunately, Xiao Cao's mysterious friend had dispelled the storm, otherwise, the situation would have been worse. Due to the impact from when they had fallen from the sky, almost everyone's clothes were tattered. The girls often unintentionally exposed their skin to the air, making Yunxi feel pretty embarrassed and awkward. Fortunately, the island had a tropical rainforest climate. Even during the night, the weather wasn't cold, they could endure it. However, there was something they couldn't endure with their will. Wooer, we are out of food. I'm hungry. What should we do? Can we go to the forest to look for wild fruits? After surviving the largest crisis in their lives, other than Xiao Cao who had eaten her fill with her friends, the other girls' stomachs were growling. Even Hua Yu also showed a helpless look. Let me prepare dinner, Yunxi said. As the only baker, incidentally, he was a third-ranked baker, amongst these female swordsmen, Yunxi had to stand up. When Yunxi had searched for the girls along the coast, he had thought about the problems they may face in the coming days. He had collected a lot of goods and materials from the broken ship and stocked them in a place not far away. He hadn't expected that a tropical storm would come, but there was a distance between the coast and the place he had stashed those goods. In that case, those goods shouldn't have been damaged too much. Conversely, the storm washed more materials up onto the shore that had dropped from White Lotus. My, you are great. I'm saved. I thought that I would starve to death. I know nothing about how to survive in the wild. Several noble female swordsmen let out a sigh of relief at the same time. We'd better not eat wild fruits because none of us know them. My, let's go carry the goods you found, Hua Yu said. Her charisma reassured the girls. Okay. Miu Miu, be good, Yunxi said and touched Miu Miu's head. His fingertip slipped through her silver headband, and he felt a smooth and cold sensation. Yunxi had never seen such material before. It was like a kind of metal, but also like gemstone. Undoubtedly, it was a priceless treasure. Hey! My smell is agreeable. You're not a bad person. Miu Miu sniffed, then stood on her toes and softly kissed Yunxi's face. Miu Miu likes sweet, soft food. It's better if it tastes like cream. Haha, all children liked sweet food. Yunxi remembered that Hua Hua, El Phyllis, Millie, and Yi Li were not an exception. Fortunately, Yunxi knew that there was something in the goods he had collected that met all the requirements of sweet, soft, and creamy. 2 hours later, Yunxi, Hua Yu, Xiao Cao and a few other girls smoothly brought back several sealed big boxes from the place where Yunxi had stashed the goods. Wow, White Lotus really had everything. Yunxi identified the goods in the boxes from their inventories. As White Lotus Sword Domain's ultimate weapon, the food White Lotus stocked was sufficient to let 3,000 people eat for 100 days. There was a special freezing storeroom in the ship that could retain the freshness of vegetables for 100 days, and potatoes for a whole year, not to mention a variety of meat. Yunxi was a third-ranked baker. Well, actually this was a pretty rare career. Due to this, he had talked with the head chef on the ship. He knew about the consumption of materials on the giant ship from the head chef. Normally, White Lotus had 1,000 sailors and passengers. It needed tons of meat, 100,000 potatoes, countless loaves of bread, and fresh milk every month. The ship also stocked a great amount of emergency rations as the last reserve. When necessary, they were enough to support the ship battling in the air for 100 days. Moreover, all the goods and materials were sealed in sealing boxes which were waterproof and fireproof, in accordance with the war standard. This really helped them a lot. Flour, eggs, and assembled simple cookware. No wonder it is a military reserve box. Yunxi tore off the sealing tape and opened the box. At first sight, his eyes were caught by the snow-white flour and eggs that were perfectly placed on cushions. With these two raw materials, he could play his role as a third-ranked baker now. Yunxi was a third-ranked baker, but that didn't mean he only knew how to make bread. Yunxi chose this career simply because he liked to make bread. In fact, Yunxi was well versed in all kinds of household duties. He had learnt to cook since he was 6 years old, and the breads he made always let Hua Hua, El Phyllis, Millie, and Yi Li show bright smiles on their faces. Now that Yunxi came to think of it, He thought that perhaps his childhood sweetheart's smiles were the most important reason why he had absorbed himself in making bread. He adroitly selected the best flour, then mixed it with yeast, egg wash, and milk, stirring it attentively. His movements were as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. The girls were all dumbfounded, for none of them had made bread before. Well, this weight should be enough. Yunxi estimated the weight of the flour, thinking that it was enough to make about 40 buns and fresh fruit salads. He started to knead the dough and called Xiao Cao to help him. He let Xiao Cao help him because she had experience in cooking. At least, she was far better than these noble girls. Is the bread done yet? I'm hungry. I can even eat raw flour. Vegetables. Vegetables. I can eat raw vegetables. Xiao Cao, be quick. I'm starving to death. These girls had never been so hungry in their lives. They gazed at Yunxi and Xiao Cao with a pathetic look. The fresh fruit salads are done. You can eat them to whet your appetites. Yunxi ordered Xiao Cao to send the diced fruits to them. Under these girls' hungry eyes, he had to increase the raw materials he had prepared for making bread. Maybe he needed to make 60 buns to satisfy their stomachs. About 30 minutes later, Yunxi put 60 doughs into the simple ovens. The girls had just finished eating the fruit salads at this time, but that didn't fill their bellies at all. They felt even hungrier. After all, fruits wouldn't fill their empty stomachs. They were used to whet their appetites. Aha, please wait for a while. Looking at their eyes, Yunxi felt as if he was surrounded by a group of hungry wolves now, and as the smell of baking bread spread in the air, the hungry wolves' eyes were becoming more and more green. Chapter 123, Yunxi's bread in the ovens. The doughs Yunxi made by mixing flour with egg wash were sending out tempting smells. Jiu, jiu, jiu. As if they were frogs in a rice field during summer, the girls' stomachs were growling, unladylike at all. This was their lives' instinct. They were all allured by the wonderful smell of freshly baked buns. Don't worry, be patient. I have made 60 buns. You'll all get one. Yunxi looked at these girls, feeling stressed in his heart. My really knows everything. Who are you sighed? My not only had perfect sword skill, but also had wonderful cooking skill. Who are you wanted to have such a maid too? If my wasn't Hua's maid, she wouldn't hesitate to use her family's privilege to obtain her. Where else could she find another black-haired maid who knew how to cook, battle and warm her bed? Yes. These buns can't be normal. I can smell that. Is this the skill called sun hand? That's a culinary arts that can bring out the raw materials' full advantages by controlling the heat. I know. That's a skill only third-ranked pastry chefs can use. It requires very high talent. Several noble girls immediately guessed Yunxi's cooking rank. After all, no one could play tricks at this point. They are almost ready. Yunxi placidly changed the topic. He didn't want to expose his true identity. Ding, ding, ding. There were a row of ovens. The first several ovens opened automatically, exposing the sweet, golden buns inside them to the air. Considering that everyone was very hungry now, Yunxi chose to make toast with a few black raisins as embellishment. Incidentally, they were also one of the main and the most popular products at Yunxi's bakery. Oh, yummy. Why had I never eaten such delicious toast before? Wooa. My life will lack the means if I can't eat Mai's toast again. The girls bit a small piece of toast in their mouths and instantly, a gust of a strange but wonderful flavor spread inside their mouths. That was the perfect result after mixing wheat flour with milk and egg wash. The baked toasts were soft and warm. With the raisins' crunchy taste, the girls' eyes were moist when they ate the toasts. That was the sun's taste. They had only eaten a few fruits before that hadn't filled their stomachs, but had made them feel even hungrier. To them, they felt that they were in heaven at this moment. Ding! Another row of ovens opened. The buns in these ovens were pineapple buns, the choicest goods amongst all the buns and the sweetest buns which were popular amongst young girls. Pineapple buns. Great. I like pineapple buns. You're amazing. Before they finished eating their toast, some girls had eagerly taken away the freshly baked pineapple buns and gulped. Compared to toast, The pineapple buns fit these girls' flavor much more. After their stomachs were slightly filled, pineapple buns were their favorite choice. The last was Yunxi's masterpiece, his trump card, which was usually used to feed his strongest childhood sweetheart in the past, butter bread. Come here, Mew Mew. This is the butter bread you wanted. Yunxi opened the last 3 ovens, then waved his hand to the silver-haired girl, who was putting a thick toast and a yellow pineapple bun in her mouth at the same time. Owu. Owu. Mew Mew had a thin body, but her appetite was incredible. Normally, a brick-shaped toast was enough to fill a girl's stomach, but she had eaten 3 toasts and 10 pineapple buns in the twinkling of an eye. Yunxi was very confused about how her thin body could consume so much food. Owu. At the first second Mew Mew ate Yunxi's butter bread, she showed a surprised and happy look on her face. She moaned with satisfaction on her white, small face, as if she was going to cry with joy. Take it easy. There are still plenty raw materials. I will make as many types of bread as I can to fill your belly. Yunxi gently patted her back. He thought that she was choked. Huo. It's delicious. It's the best food I have eaten. Mew Mew said with a look of anguish, when I was young, I was only allowed to eat crystals. These crystals were too hard. It took me a lot of time to digest them, but Mom said that I wouldn't become stronger if I refused to eat these crystals. If I want to find my father, I have to eat a lot of crystals. They really gorged me with crystals. I never thought that there was such delicious food in the world. Crystal? Was it edible? Could it be a local food from a country I don't know? Yunxi fed Mew Mew the butter bread and felt puzzled in his heart. Yummy. Xiao Cao picked up a piece of butter bread, putting it into her mouth bit by bit. She was so careful, didn't even let a crumb of bread drop on the ground. Children who grow up in families which are short of money are better prepared to deal with the problems of adult life than children who are brought up by wealthy parents. The staple food in her village was black steamed bread. The bread was made with fine flour and was already a luxury food in the villagers' eyes, not to mention the bread made by a third-ranked baker. My, do you want to join my family? This time, even Hua Hua couldn't stop Hua Yu's eyes from turning green with jealousy. Why was Mai's bread so delicious? All she used were the reserved materials from White Lotus, and the tools she used to make bread were just some simple, temporary cookers. How could she make such fantastic bread under such circumstances? Look. These girls who had eaten Mai's butter bread were all showing a look of ecstasy on their faces. Their tongues and hearts were all enraptured by the delicate flavor. I'm not that good. It should be because the raw materials are good. I can't do so well every time. Yunxi also felt surprised in his heart. He had stopped making bread for many days. Why were his hands still as good as before? He even felt that his rank as a baker was going to upgrade. Even though cooks couldn't fight, a 4th-ranked cook was also recognized as a hero-ranked person. He heard that once a cook reached the 4th rank, the food the cook made would contain incredible power. All the recipes mortals knew weren't higher than the 3rd rank, and a person who could make 3rd-ranked food already deserved to be called master. Even though a 4th-ranked cook couldn't be compared to a 4th-ranked swordsman, it was still a great honor, which meant that he had stepped into a higher realm and become a legend. Would I not become a hero-ranked swordsman first but become a hero-ranked baker in advance? Chapter 124. Enemies Forever. No one would deny that Yunxi's handmade bread was one of the best foods in the world, from both the meaning of to fill the belly and to satisfy the desire of mouth. Even Hua Yu, who was born an aristocratic miss and had lived an extravagant life since her childhood, was full of praise for Yunxi's bread. In that case, there was a problem. Gee! Mew Mew looked at the last piece of butter bread with desire. She licked her lips and grasped Yunxi's hand, acting like a spoiled child. Ah! Xiao Cao hurriedly finished eating her piece of butter bread and stood up, not even wiping off the white cream on her lips. No more butter bread. Hua Yu drew out her silk scarf. She gracefully wiped off the white cream from the corners of her mouth and also gazed at the last butter bread. Well, undoubtedly, the owner of the last piece of butter bread was Yunxi. He held it in his hand, speechlessly looking at the 3 girls around him. Mew Mew was still a child, so her behavior was understandable. But why were Xiao Cao and Hua Yu also looking at him with longing and strong hints in their eyes? Xiao Cao, aren't you a girl who doesn't mind your food's taste and will feel satisfied as long as the food can fill your belly? Hua Yu, your family should have much better tasting food than my butter bread. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm hungry, too. Zizi. Xiao Cao and Hua Yu ignored Miu Miu, who was shaking Yunxi's hand. They looked at each other like diamond striking diamond. Well, I still want it, Xiao Cao sighed. She wiped off the cream from her mouth, then stood up and claimed, "Mai's last piece of butter bread is mine." What a coincidence. I think so too. Hua Yu also stood up. With her action, her two mountains, which were wrapped by bandages on her chest and half exposed to the air, made Yunxi almost expose his true identity in an unmentionable method. The best should belong to the strongest leader. Xiao Cao moved her hands and legs, warming up her body. Her leaf-made clothes were fit for battle and wouldn't impede her motions at all. I agree with you. It's the time to decide who is the leader again. Otherwise, Mai will be bothered. Hua Yu used new bandages to bind her half-exposed breasts again. With the help of her bloodline, the wounds on her ribs had already recovered at a speed that was way faster than her estimation. Not only so, after seeing that terrible presence, her white gold rose bloodline had some unknown new changes. Hua Yu didn't know the reason why, but she guessed that it was due to Mai. Hence, let's start the second round of duel. Xiao Cao didn't know too much about noble families' rules. As a girl from a small village, she trusted in her strength more than anyone. Oh, big sisters are going to fight again. Who will be the winner? I guess it will be big sister Hua Yu. No, Xiao Cao isn't inferior to Hua Yu. If she had a better weapon, she wouldn't be defeated so easily. Yes. I think that their winning percentage is half to half. After the girls saw that Hua Yu and Xiao Cao were going to fight again, regardless of the reason, their duel had naturally drawn everyone's attention. As the noble girl's representative, Hua Yu's leadership and prestige were recognized by all the female swordsmen in the group. As the civilian girl's representative, Xiao Cao learned perfect sword skills by practicing on her own. She was respected by all the female swordsmen in the group. This female swordsman group centered around Mai as its core, formed imperceptibly by Hua Yu and Xiao Cao. Hua Yu's natural noble style and noble golden hair let everybody accept her leadership. However, Xiao Cao's sword skill that was self-taught also shocked their hearts and made them admire her. The two people stood for two different styles. The white gold rose. The tough little grass. Hua Yu had won the first battle, and this laid the foundation for her leadership within the female swordsman group. But now, the second round battle was going to start. Xiao Cao threw down the challenge to the current leader, Hua Yu, as a brave challenger. Don't fight. If you want to eat butter bread, I can immediately make more now. Yunxi looked at Xiao Cao and Hua Yu with a dumbfounded look. He didn't expect that they were going to duel simply because of a piece of butter bread. No. That's not the point, Xiao Cao said and shook her head. Yes. This is a duel between us girls, Hua Yu said with a serious and holy look. For bread. Let's fight. As if their battle from the entrance test had reappeared again, Hua Yu was still holding her gorgeous white gold crossed sword in her hand. Xiao Cao was still holding an iron sword that was reforged by using the fragments of her broken sword. Compared to their last battle, there was still a great gap between their weapons. However, Xiao Cao's sword wouldn't be broken so easily again. The reforged black iron sword was much heavier and harder because it had been mixed with more hard materials. I know. You have reached the third rank. Hua Yu took a deep breath. Her eyes instantly become clear and pure. She had disregarded all her distracting thoughts. Xiao Cao wasn't a rival she could let her guard down against. If she wanted to win, she must do her best. The same as you, Xiao Cao said. She had figured out Hua Yu's true strength, only a step away from reaching the peak of the third rank. They knew each other very well, as if there was an invisible string linking them, making them inseparable. Of course, not only them, all the members of the female swordsman group, including Miu Miu, had the same feeling in their hearts. They were on the same invisible web, linking their souls and blood through one invisible thread after another, and at the center of that web was the mysterious black-haired girl. Xiao Cao and Hua Yu were like a binary star system, closely rotating around the center of the web. They were beautiful, strong, healthy, and energetic, both having the same great talent. This was an inevitable battle between them. "Mai's bread is mine. No way. I was first to claim it." With a glint and flash of their swords, their battle started. That was a sword's song, gorgeous and beautiful. It not only symbolized their youth and friendship, but also symbolized their envy and glory. The heavy white gold crossed sword cut and slashed against the austere black iron sword again and again, generating dazzling sparks between them. Hua Yu's holy crossed sword skill was one of the most direct sword skills. In Hua Yu's hand, her sword skill was not only gorgeous, but also powerful. In contrast, Xiao Cao's sword skill had become tougher with the sea's boundless artistic conception in it. It had reduced a little hardness, but also had increased a little softness at the same time. Chapter 125, Flying Swallow, and Flying Swallow. Yun she felt the wills in Xiao Cao and Hua Yu's eyes. He stopped himself from trying to stop them. From their seeds, he felt their growth. Even if this was just a joke-like duel, it had a special meaning to both of them. They regarded each other as their lifetime enemy, so they tried their best to show their strengths to each other. At this moment, they were so beautiful and bright. Crossed sword. Hua Yu lifted her white gold crossed sword, showing the sword skill which she had used to block Yun Shi's the swallow returns in the entrance test again. Xiao Cao raised her black iron sword. She was suppressed by Hua Yu's crossed sword from the beginning. Now, she started her counterattack. This was also the first time that Yun Shi and all the other girls saw Xiao Cao's full assault. This time, Xiao Cao didn't need to worry if her weapon would break. Her sword skill finally showed its powerful side. That was a flashing sword. This was what others thought after they saw Xiao Cao's sword. Apparently, even it had been reforged and wouldn't be broken by the white gold crossed sword easily, it was still a rough black iron sword. However, Xiao Cao's every single brandish was like a streak of light, drawing everyone's attention. That was a streak of dangerous, fatal light cast by Xiao Cao's tough will, for overcoming adversity and surviving in the world. That was Xiao Cao's mortal's sword, perfect. Comparatively, Hua Yu's holy crossed sword, which also reached the perfect stage, was suppressed by Xiao Cao's mortal sword. Other than Yun Shi, no one had seen their attacks and defenses clearly. Xiao Cao and Hua Yu's sword skills were beyond their understanding. Their battle was as gorgeous as a sword dance. The other girls' eyes couldn't take it all in, and all they could do was tremble with excitement. They were obviously fighting with their full strength, not showing even a bit of mercy to each other at all. Only at this moment could one really find out the difference between their sword skills. Hua Yu's holy crossed sword was derived from the knight's sword skill. Its offensive power was great, and its defense was even better. After getting a firm foothold with its defensive power, it would be time to launch straight attacks. Xiao Cao's sword was unfettered. When she attacked, her sword would become a summer storm, reckless and unbridled. When she defended, her sword would become a stalk of watergrass, swallowing all her enemies' attacks. The freckled sister's sword skill is better. Miu Miu was held by Yun Shi, looking at the last piece of butter bread in Yun Shi's hand with desire, but her judgment was very right. Yes, but Hua Yu also has an advantage. Her bloodline is stronger. Yun Shi intently watched the dancing of their swords. To be honest, if he hadn't obtained Hua Hua's sword talent, he would be no match for both of them. One had an old bloodline and was a talented female swordsman that had received the best knight education from her childhood. The other was just a village girl that obtained no legacy, growing up freely like a grass stalk in the wild, but had practiced her mortal's sword to the limit. Clearly, Xiao Cao cared about her failure in the last battle very much. She specially reforged and reinforced her iron sword. After filling the gap between their weapons, Xiao Cao immediately showed her frightening talent. Yun Shi even thought that if she could keep improving herself, someday, she wouldn't be inferior to his perfect childhood sweetheart. Her sword contained a potential that neither Flying Swallow Sword nor Holy Crossed Sword had. Perhaps it was still at its embryonic form now, but as Xiao Cao grew, her mortal's sword would reach an inconceivable realm. However, Hua Yu was strong, too. No one should disdain any noble family's history and legacy. That was their essence after countless deaths, bloodshed, and failures, which had been engraved in their descendants' bloodlines. White Gold Rose bloodline was such an essence. After experiencing countless battles, it finally became a kind of instinct, inherited by Hua family's descendants from generation to generation. Hua Yu's bloodline also contained a special property, just like Xiao Cao's tough will. The next second, Yunxi's guess was confirmed. Blooming. My rose sword. Instantly, bright light burst out from Hua Yu's white gold crossed sword. A translucent white gold rose rose from her crossed sword. This was the first time that Hua Yu unleashed all her bloodline's power after she had awakened her bloodline. Hua Yu's white gold rose couldn't be compared with Hua Hua's sky flying sword, which was so strong that it could even slay a dragon, but it was still a power that was beyond a mortal's limit and had reached the hero rank. Compared to Yunxi's The Swallow Returns, the power contained in her sword symbolized White Gold Rose's glory. Xiao Cao's black iron sword groaned. Its sword blade, which had been reinforced, instantly became scarred. However, Xiao Cao didn't step back. On the contrary, she walked forward. In that same moment, Hua Yu made the same movement. She felt their footsteps, breaths and rhythms in surprise. At the last moment, they made the same choice. Crossed flying swallow sword. Continuous flying swallow sword. The heavy white gold crossed sword turned into lights. In Hua Yu's hand, it wasn't like a flying swallow, but like a hovering eagle, holy and unstoppable. And the scarred black iron sword perfectly recreated Yunxi's flying swallow. No. It was Xiao Cao's flying swallow. Flying swallow 10-fold attack. Flying swallow 14-fold attack. They were both flying swallow sword, but had turned into two different styles in the two-sword genius's hands. Hua Yu's flying swallow sword reduced flexibility, but increased the attacking range and power. Xiao Cao's flying swallow sword was more nimble, changeable, and faster. This was a battle of power, speed, attack, and nimbleness. They both understood how to make flying swallow sword more suitable to themselves. What they understood was really breathtaking. Oh, I take back my words. These two sisters are both very good. Miu Miu looked at Hua Yu and Xiao Cao in admiration. Yes, they are both good girls. I can't watch them getting hurt. Miu Miu, can you leave the piece of butter bread to them? Yunxi unsheathed the crane wing's twin swords. Chapter 126, Innocent Paradise, 1. The twin swords hovered in the air like a pair of flying dragons and respectively locked onto Xiao Cao and Hua Yu as their targets. Ding! Hua Yu's white gold crossed sword shivered. Her flying swallow sword was interrupted. Obviously, Crane Wing's twin swords were stronger than Hua Yu's white gold crossed sword. Ding! Xiao Cao's reforged black iron sword couldn't block the twin swords' attack. Even though she had tried her best to parry the twin swords with her sword's unbroken part, it was still useless. Crane Wing's twin swords were superior to Hua Yu's white gold crossed sword. It was matchless amongst all the mortal-ranked weapons. Okay, let's eat the butter bread together. Yunxi used Quicksilver motion, instantly appearing beside Xiao Cao and Hua Yu. He divided the last piece of butter bread into 3 slices. This is yours, Xiao Cao. Yunxi gently put the first slice of bread to Xiao Cao's mouth, feeding her to eat it. Xiao Cao blushed, and this made Yunxi really feel curious. Did she really like his butter bread so much? As far as he remembered, Hua Hua, El Phyllis, Millie and Yi Li liked his butter bread too. Did his butter bread really taste so good? Ah! Hua Yu felt jealousy as she watched this scene, but her face immediately turned bright, because Yunxi came to feed her too. Oh! Unlike Xiao Cao, who had eaten the whole slice of bread immediately, Hua Yu first put out her small tongue and lightly licked the white cream on the bread. She even stealthily licked Yunxi's finger, then bit the slice of bread bit by bit with a satisfied look. I lost. Seeing Hua Yu's cunning behavior, Xiao Cao finally realized what a mistake she had made. She shouldn't have eaten up Yunxi's bread so fast. They were really engaged in a close battle just now. Neither Xiao Cao nor Hua Yu conceded defeat. In that case, Yunxi's intervention was just in time. It wouldn't mean anything if they kept fighting. However, Xiao Cao suffered a great deal on another battlefield, and Hua Yu wasn't the last winner, too. My, feed me. Miu Miu stretched out her both hands and kissed Yunxi's face. She gazed at the last slice of butter bread with desire, acting like a spoiled child. This was her privilege as a child. Neither Xiao Cao nor Hua Yu could kiss Yunxi so easily and not be hampered. Okay. Looking at Miu Miu's watery eyes, Yunxi felt that his heart had melted. He mercilessly despised Miu Miu's father in his heart again. How could her father abandon such a cute child so easily? Woo. Mai's bread is the best. There is Mai's taste inside it. Miu Miu licked the white cream on the bread bit by bit with a bright smile on her face. It's just a slice of butter bread. Please don't exaggerate. I can make as many as I can as long as there are still raw materials. Yunxi didn't understand why Xiao Cao and Hua Yu fought for his bread. Was his bread really so fantastic? His technique had unleashed the food's full taste and nutrition, but they were still normal food. We need your bread. Although the battle had ended in a draw, Hua Yu didn't feel at ease at all. Xiao Cao's advancement speed was too fast. If Hua Yu hadn't awakened her white gold rose bloodline, nor wasn't using her white gold crossed sword, probably she would have been defeated. Bread is good, Xiao Cao said and nodded, looking at Miu Miu, who was fed by Yunxi, with an envious look. Yunxi felt that as if he had returned to that small town. He looked at the three girls with a confused look. He remembered that in the past, his childhood sweethearts often kept fighting for his bread too. However, because Hua was the strongest amongst them, she had taken almost all the butter bread Yunxi had made. Occasionally, Yunxi would make extra butter bread and only at that time would he could stealthily share that bread with El Phyllis, Millie, and Yi Li. At this time, the girls had all finished eating Yunxi's bread. They let out a sigh of relief. The battle between Hua Yu and Xiao Cao was too fierce, getting out of their breaths. They could see Hua Yu's heavy flying swallow sword and Xiao Cao's flying swallow 14-fold clearly, but couldn't understand them. Most of the girls could only understand the starting position of the two different flying swallow sword, and that was due to Yunxi's seeds in their bodies. I see. So this is the flying swallow sword. Hua Yu won't be defeated. But Xiao Cao is strong too. Neither side got the better of the other. Can we create our own flying swallow sword in the future? Due to Yunxi's seeds, all the girls had a special feeling towards flying swallow sword. After seeing Hua Yu and Xiao Cao's battle, they had all learned something. The seeds were growing fast in the girls' bodies. After a night, the tropical storm that had raged last night was like an unreal dream, leaving no trace on the island. The scorching sun was shining on the unknown island, making the girls feel the full power of the heat in tropical regions. Not only the sun, the air was hot too. Soon afterwards, sweat broke out all over the girls' bodies and trickled down their backs, wetting their tattered clothes. I feel so hot. The heat is killing me. Is this the tropical climate? How can people live under these circumstances? I can't live with the smell on my body. We need to have a bath and change our clothes. No. I can't stand it anymore. In the scorching sun, the girls finally couldn't stand the current situation. When they were stranded, they could put up with inconveniences, but it was still a cruel torture to them. It's indeed very hot today. Yunxi wiped away his sweat from his forehead. This was his first time being on a tropical island. Fortunately, his black maid's uniform could clean itself automatically, so he wasn't as embarrassed as other girls. "My and everyone, guess what I have found?" Ling Ling's voice came from a side of the mountain with a cheerful tone. "What? New supplies? You found some new survivors?" The girls chattered, but none of them guessed the right answer. "It's a hot spring. I found a hot spring. This is a volcanic island," Ling Ling said loud with excitement. This news instantly ignited these girls' passions. "Hot spring. There is a hot spring. I will die if the situation continues like this. I'm saved. Let's go and have a relaxing time at the hot spring together. Mai, come with me. Let's enjoy the hot spring." Yunxi didn't answer. His body was as stiff as a stone now. www. What? HH. Having a bath together with these girls? Chapter 127, Innocent Paradise, 2. The hot spring Ling Ling found wasn't far away from their temporary campground. It was only about a mile away. However, it was on the other side of the mountain, so they couldn't see it from the platform. The existence of a hot spring meant that the island wasn't formed by corals, but formed due to a volcanic eruption. They didn't see steam rising from the volcanic vent, which meant that the volcano was dormant. Therefore, they didn't need to worry that the volcano would suddenly erupt. The ground, piled up by thick volcanic ashes, could be very good farmland. This also explained why there were so many tropical shrubs and little animals like squirrels. However, the most important thing to the girls was still the hot spring. After a day's hard work, finally they could take a break. Nothing would be better than a hot spring for them. Under the scorching sun especially, their bodies felt squishy and their clothes were tattered. How could they endure such an environment at ease? Hurry up. It's here. Ling Ling stood on a rock above the hot spring and waved her hands at them. Hot spring. Hot spring. Thank God. Heaven never seals off all the exit. If things went on like this, I will absolutely be driven crazy. Be quick. Let's go bathe together. To girls, it was one of the best methods to express their feelings with each other. All the girls were expecting a wonderful time and to enjoy the hot spring together with the mysterious black-haired maid. No one noticed that Mai was trying to dodge their gazes and her face was as pale as a paper now. However, it was apparently impossible to run away without being noticed. No matter how quiet and unimpressive Yunxi tried to be, his long black hair and the gorgeous maid's uniform had both exposed him. Under the scorching sun, all the girls, including Hua Yu and Xiao Cao, were sweating profusely. However, Yunxi was still not sweating at all. This was really unfair in the other girls' eyes. If they hadn't seen a few beads of sweat dripping from his forehead, they would even wonder if Yunxi was a mysterious fairy. What can I do? After realizing that everyone was looking at him and he wouldn't have any chance to run away, Yunxi sweated profusely in his heart. To take a bath together with so many beautiful girls. That was far beyond his moral bottom line. Why did he have to face such a situation? He only pretended to be his childhood sweetheart's maid, hiding and training himself in Sword Palace, then he would finally find a way to get rid of that apostle. There must be something wrong. I shouldn't be surrounded by girls like now, having to bathe together with them. I must find a method to run away. I must. Yunxi, remember that you are an upright gentleman. Unfortunately, before Yunxi could find a way out, the girls had reached the hot spring. The hot spring wasn't large, but it could accommodate 40 or even 50 people. Thin mist floated on the water, was really irresistible to the girls, especially in the hot tropical rainforest. Well, I suddenly remembered that there is something I must finish. Miu Miu wants to take a bath. Miu Miu's body was as clean as Yunxi's, but after she saw the hot spring, her eyes immediately brightened up. She cheered and quickly ran to the hot spring, taking off her socks from her snow-white legs. In the hazy mist, Miu Miu's feet looked as white as a pair of white jades. She bit her lips, and on her moon-like beautiful face, her big eyes were bursting with happiness. Her silver long hair covered her shoulders, emitting unique, fantastic temperament. Her petite feet, round foot arches, from her toes to her insteps, were showing an attractive gloss. With her sweet groans when she jumped into the water, they were as fatal as poison to Yunxi's heart. Her skin stained with sweat was reflecting a beautiful white color. Her petite body trembled due to the hot spring's heat. Both of her shoulders shivered when she bent down, and that posture. Oh! Due to the heat of the water, her thin body started to ooze sweat. Her white skin was covered in pink. Her pink lips groaned, and her small breasts rose and fell with each breath, and her pink buds. Orwu, Miu Miu's voice sounded like a small fox. Yunxi wondered if it was her natural talent, because he heard a lure in her voice. Her skin shivered due to happiness and her temperament was becoming charming with her breath and scent. That was a girl's scorching and innocent rhythm of love. Her soft skin was so alluring that one wanted to bite it, as if one could suck out sweet milk from her skin. Don't be in a hurry, Miu Miu. While Miu Miu jumped into the hot spring, Xiao Cao was taking off her clothes. Unlike Miu Miu's snow-white skin, Xiao Cao's skin looked healthy and tight. Her long legs that naturally formed due to her regular training were her most prominent features. Even though She had seen her body before, he was still attracted by her. Let's go, Mai. Let's go down there together. For the first time, You exposed her perfect body in front of Shi. Her skin, waist, legs were so perfect. She was just standing there, but it was sufficient to charm men all over the world. What a pornographic and fatal scene, especially these girls' innocent smiles. They were the most terrible monsters in Shi's heart now. No. I'm finished. I'm not an upright gentleman anymore. Shi blushed as if his face was burning. No, I can't keep on like this. Even though his disguise was perfect, but one part of his body couldn't be changed. If he went bathing together with them, there wouldn't be any chance for him to hide his identity. My family has a special custom that no family members can go bathing together with anyone. I will come back here after you all finish bathing. Shi made a far-fetched excuse, then awkwardly ran away without glancing back. Chapter 128, Girls Chat Titter. The girls couldn't help but laugh out when they saw Shi's awkward appearance. Well, I didn't expect that Mai is so shy. Isn't it a pleasurable thing to go bathe together? Yes, her breasts are slightly smaller than average, but is it necessary to mind it so much? At any rate, she wouldn't be smaller than Miu Miu, right? My breasts aren't small. They are very big. Miu Miu quibbled with an angry tone. However, after looking at her flat chest, she had to admit the fact while grinding her teeth that her breasts were indeed very small at this moment. Well, almost all the girls of the female swordsman group had thought the wrong way. They thought that Mai, too, cared about her flat chest and didn't want to let anyone realize this point, so she chose to run away. This little flaw didn't hurt Mai's impression in their hearts, but let them feel more intimate. Haha, so Mai also had her weak point. She was too cute. By the way, who are you? How can your breasts be so big? What's your method of absorbing nutrients? Yes. How did you maintain your skin? Your skin is as smooth as milk. I'm jealous. After someone opened the conversation, almost everyone had focused their minds on you. They had to admit that after awakening her white gold rose bloodline, Yu's beauty and body shape were both the undoubtedly number one amongst all the girls. Especially her chest. Even 3 Xiao Caos were no match for her. The gap between them was as wide as a gorge. Well, firstly, you need to drink milk. I recommend you drink the milk from Western Gods Domain's plateau areas. They are not cheap, but I can help you reserve them after we enter Sword Palace. You didn't try to hide her secret but shared it with everyone generously. As long as they were still in puberty, the growth of their breasts wouldn't be irremediable. Not to mention that even after puberty, there would still be many ways that could make up for their lifetime regret. At this time, the multi-headed dragon must be mentioned here. In the eyes of the girls whose breasts were pathetically flat, its blood was really a fantastic medicine, and no matter how many years had passed, its wanted lists were still hanging all over the universe, because too many girls were eager for its blood. Well, how to describe it concretely? It was said that in order to hunt the multi-headed dragon who was really good at escaping, dozens of female groups had formed a huge organization called the Alliance of Hunting Multi-Headed Dragons. The members of this rare female organization were all over the gods' domains. As long as they found any trace of the multi-headed dragon, they would chase after it by fair means or foul. What? Does such a fantastic medicine really exist in the world? I heard that its blood is even effective on legend-ranked adult females. Oh gosh, I want its blood. The multi-headed dragon must still be alive. There is still hope for me yet. Undoubtedly, to pursue a perfect body and chest were all the girls dreamt of. Even if they were already older than 16, they were still young girls. The legend-ranked females who were still hunting for the multi-headed dragon diligently from one god's domain to another also thought so. After discussing the multi-headed dragon's miserable fate with their great enthusiasm, the girls started to talk about their own fantastic changes. By the way, I find that my skin has become far better than before. No one knew who said it, but soon afterwards, all the girls joined in the discussion. Gee, you too. I thought that it was my illusion. Great. Look. I was always distressed at my scars. But they had suddenly disappeared one day. Ling Ling raised her hand to prove her words. Not only her. All the members of the small female swordsman group had noticed that some inexplicable change had occurred to their bodies. Their skin had become much smoother, and their thinking had become clearer. When they practiced their sword skills, their growing speed had frightened even themselves. At first, they thought that it was just an exception, but after this bathe, the secret wouldn't be a secret anymore. So, not only Hua Yu and Xiao Cao were becoming stronger and stronger. In the past few days, over 10 girls had felt that the door to the second rank was opening up to them, and other girls had also touched the edge of the second rank. So, everyone is the same. Incredible. I was told that my talent was bad and no matter how hard I tried, I could only reach the second rank in my life. However, I have the self-confidence to reach the second rank. No, even a higher rank now. Yes, me too. I don't know the reason, but I do have the confidence to follow Hua Yu, Xiao Cao, and everyone to reach a higher realm. I even started to wonder why I was so foolish in the past. Why did I have to spend such a long time to practice the simplest sword skill at that time? Hua Yu and Xiao Cao looked at each other, wearing an expression of could that be the reason on their faces. Everything had been changed since that day. More specifically, since the moment they met that mysterious black-haired girl. The mysterious black-haired maid perfectly conformed to the tale that only spread in Sky Sword God's domain. After obtaining a strand of her black hair, everything started to become fantastic for them. Due to her black hair's blessing, Hua Yu awakened her family's old white gold rose bloodline, and Xiao Cao obtained her perfect mortal's sword. Other girls hadn't obtained that many changes like Hua Yu and Xiao Cao yet, but their sword skills also started to contain inconceivable spiritualities. The most important thing was that they came together because of this reason and link, and finally became intimate with each other. Why had that happened? They should have separated and never had any links after Sword Palace's entrance test. But now, they got along well with each other, having formed an inseparable small group. Haha, as I expected, Mai is different. Hua is stronger, but Mai has a different charm. I always feel happy when I can stay with Mai. Yes. I think that Mai's potential isn't inferior to Hua's. Mai is the main reason that we can be together. At this moment, the girls finally ensured that the smiling, warm, mysterious black-haired maid was the tie linking everyone together. No one knew when it started, but her and them had become so intimate now, as if an invisible thread named Fate had linked them and their beloved Mai together. In the female swordsman group, Mai was special and unique. No one could replace her. Mai was the moon, and they were the stars around the moon, sparkling with charming moonlight. Chapter 129, Synchronous Reaction I suck. Yunshi laughed at himself and gasped. With great difficulty, he had finally forced himself to run away from the girls. He knew that he shouldn't go to the hot spring with them, but he didn't say no immediately at that time and finally, almost made an unforgivable mistake. If Hua was here. A shudder run down Yunshi's back. Hua's jealous radar would have made her go mad. Fortunately, Hua was far away and wouldn't know what happened. He was really lucky. At a place far away from the island Yunshi and the girls were at, Hua and the twin witches were fighting a large monster side by side. No. Something is wrong. Hua felt an inexplicable irritation a moment ago. She didn't know why she suddenly felt gloomy and fretful, but since she had fallen into this sea area, an ominous presentiment kept haunting her heart. She had a persistent suffocating feeling, and restlessness as if her blood was flowing backwards. What was happening to her little she at that place she couldn't reach? Don't get distracted. This is a tough enemy. Red Lotus noticed Hua's absent-minded look. She had to warn Hua as they were fighting a powerful monster. The monster's whole body was covered with a thick shell. Only its milky white part under its shell was exposed and suspended in the air. Its tentacles shockingly revealed a kind of red blood. It wasn't a local monster from White Lotus Sword Domain. It was an intruder from the void, having broken into the sword domain through the hole that the White Holy Dragon had made. I know. I just can't stop worrying. Hua Hua was driven into a frenzy again. She felt uneasy due to some unknown danger. Little she, you must be safe. If things go on like this, I can't avoid all accidents, Yunshi sighed, looking at his own face's reflection on the sword blade. His skin was as white as snow and his black hair was so smooth that it could even reflect rays of sunlight. If Yunshi didn't know that this was his current appearance, he would even be captivated by his own look. The Great Sword Maid's legacy was too terrible. It could even change a person so much. No wonder that Hua Yu, Xiao Cao, and all the other members of the female swordsman group doubted him. They even invited him to go bathe together. However, he was 100% male. The black maid uniform's disguise couldn't hide his true nature. To be honest, no one would be indifferent to Hua Yu's and Xiao Cao's naked bodies. He was a man. He couldn't stop his physiological reactions. Elf, what did you think of me that night? Was it really a dream? Yunshi had had only one experience of skin-to-skin contact. He only intertwined both his body and soul with a girl once. He couldn't help but remember what happened that night again. Was it a dream or reality? That night, under that memorable tree, he walked up to her, holding her hands and kissing her lips. With his hand stroking, the elf's body shivered. Her long legs tightly closed due to her nervousness. He stretched out his hand, taking off her shoes and socks from her beautiful feet. Under the moonlight, her feet shuddered as if they were a pair of cheeses, spreading a delicious scent in the air. He looked at her gem-like legs as if he was staring at the most beautiful piece of art in the world. In his eyes, nothing was more beautiful than her legs. The elf blushed. She turned her face and waited, suppressing her groan with all her strength, but finally failed to control her mood. She put down both her hands, tightly holding the grasses on the ground in her hands. He gently licked her feet and kissed her foot arches, kissing her white skin from her toes to her insteps, leaving his kiss marks on her slender legs. The elf sweetly groaned, opening herself up to him. What a beautiful body! What a strong allure! Yunshi already couldn't control his desire any longer. Whoa! What am I thinking? Recalling that he was remembering the most embarrassing part in his memory, Yunshi's face instantly turned red. Yunshi finally failed to recall which part was a dream and which part was reality. Immersing in the hot spring with hazy mist, Miu Miu's small face turned red. What's this? What's this weird feeling? Miu Miu was too young to know the meaning of this strange, exciting feeling. She felt as if someone was gently raising her feet, kissing her from her toes to her insteps, then from her insteps to her foot arches. After that, she felt as if someone was lifting her face, gently kissing her lips and opening her mouth with his tongue. The person was tasting her mouth and intruding into the inside of her mouth. She gingerly put out her tongue, intertwining her tongue with the non-existent tongue. The warm tongue made Miu Miu lose her head. She couldn't help but emit a sweet groan. With a few beads of sweat on her skin, her petite body shook due to stress. In the warm water, Miu Miu's body started to sweat. Her white skin was covered with a layer of pink. Why? Why am I feeling so comfortable? Her mouth's temperature was rapidly rising, as if someone was taking her lips, making her blush and immerse herself in happiness. Her ears, legs, chest, and invisible tail were warming up, as if a pair of burning eyes were looking up and down at her body rudely. Wooer! Miu Miu held her slender feet in her hands, but found out that her snow-white hands were uncontrollably stroking her feet. She didn't want to do that, but couldn't suppress the impulse from deep within her heart. Moreover, she didn't know why she had this feeling, but when she stroked her body, she felt that it wasn't her doing so, but someone else. Her slender legs were inexplicably sensitive at this moment. A few simple touches had made her body limp. Suddenly, Mai's face appeared in Miu Miu's mind. Her petite body shivered, finally emitting a sweet melody with an unstoppable joy. Almost at the same time, the elf in Yunshi's mind suddenly turned into Miu Miu. The silver-haired girl lightly bit her lips, giving a shy and stealthy glance at Yoon-shi with an unquenchable expectation in her timid eyes. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.